by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. And after practice, I'd put on stuff in the one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one, ball drop loose. did buy next one-on-one ball drop once. And after practice, I'd put on stuff and do one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one ball drop once. And after practice, I'd put on stuff and do one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one ball drop once. And after practice, I'd put on stuff and do one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one ball drop once. And after practice, I'd put on stuff and do one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy slashed me on the elbow. So she did it by next one-on-one ball drop once. And after practice, I'd put on stuff and do one-on-ones with them all the time. The guy
With the first selection in the 2008 Collegiate Draft, the Boston Panthers select
Ray up top, having to go for Paul Ripple, right on cue. He scores!
Matt Sebald, midfield, Cornell.
Sebald running in, scores! Sebald so tough to contain.
Ned Brody, attack, shoot.
The slam dunk from Ned Brody, and he's got the hat trick.
Crowley dodges left, stutters a bit, fires low, score!
It's the second today for Kevin Crowley.
Here's Pennell, gets this big lefty shot, he scores! Ron Pennell, what a play!
Welcome to the 2014 MLL Collegiate Draft from Center City in downtown Philadelphia. The Pennsylvania Convention Center is home to the U.S. Lacrosse Convention this weekend, and next door from the historic Liberty Ballroom, 8 teams will select the next crop of stars into the MLL. Good evening, I'm Evan Washburn, and tonight marks truly one of the big events on the lacrosse calendar. Over the next few hours, 8 teams will select some of the top college seniors into the MLL, and we'll see the next crop of stars. Now it is 8 rounds, 64 picks total. During the first round, teams will have 5 minutes to make their selection. In the remaining 7 rounds, they will have 3 minutes in between picks. Now the first round is full of intrigue. For the second straight season, the Ohio Machine hold the #1 pick. And after a trade on Tuesday, the Rochester Rattlers will pick second, with the Lizards drafting back-to-back at 3 and 4. The league's newest team, the Florida Launch, will make the franchise's first ever selection at 5, with Denver, Charlotte, and Boston closing out the round. The reigning champion Bayhawks are the only team not picking in the first round. And with that, I bring in my co-host for the evening, Quint Kesnick, longtime college and professional analyst. And Quint, we sat in these seats a year ago and discussed a crop of talent that was very deep. When you look at this year's group of seniors, what would you say?
Well, last year 41 of the 64 drafted players actually made a team and dressed in a game, which is a ridiculously high number when you look at the history of this league. I think this year's class kind of comes down to par, and what par usually is each team has 2 or 3 rookies on their rosters, and so the overall number is going to be somewhere around 20. So I think about 20 of these athletes. This is not a deep class. I like it's the attack players, the attackmen. I think there's some really good finishers. I also think it's a strong defensive class. It's light at the midfield, and then there's a couple other specialists in terms of goalie and face-off specialists that can will be drafted and I think can make rosters.
We spent the entire week over the phone talking with GMs and coaches, and you put together a list of the top 8 players. There is some big-name talent in this draft. Take us through them.
Yeah, these are guys I like. Kieran McCardle, righty-lefty attackman out of St. John's. He's terrific in the 2-man games. You think about the points and the offensive load he has carried for head coach Jason Miller. He's done it all. He's raised the level of the St. John's program. Justin Ward, NCAA champion 2 years ago, one of the best passers in this class. Big numbers. What I liked about his game last year was he was turning the corner more, doing it himself. Head down south to Duke University, last year's NCAA champion. Jordan Wolf, his speed is a weapon. I don't care whether he's playing D1 or MLL. He is so fast. I really like the way he played last year, developing his left hand. At the midfield, I expect Tom Schreiber to be selected #1 overall. Princeton University's got the right-left split dodge. He can tear you up, and his vision is superb. One of the best passing middies we've seen in this draft in some time. John Lacasio is a long stick midfielder out of Villanova. He's excellent off the ground. I think you'll also see Luke Dupree taken early from Duke. Face-offs is all about Brendan Fowler, MVP of championship weekend last year out of Duke University, 64%. And then defensively, a good class led by Joe Fletcher of Loyola, who I think projects to be like a 2 or 3 defender, kind of an off-ball guy, and Michael Earhart, 6'4", 210, and he can cover you. He's out of Maryland.
Well, now it's time for the Master of Ceremonies, Commissioner Dave Gross, to introduce us to the 2014 MLL Collegiate Draft. Up to the podium, and Commissioner Dave Gross.
Good evening, and welcome to the 2014 Major League Lacrosse Collegiate Draft. Tonight, the top 64 collegiate seniors will be drafted into Major League Lacrosse. Our draft consists of 8 total rounds. The first round, each team will have 5 minutes to make their selection. In rounds 2 through 5, the teams will have 3 minutes to make their choice, and in rounds 6 through 8, they will have 2 minutes to make their selection. We now begin the draft, and the Ohio Machine are on the clock.
Well, Quinn, for the second straight season, the Ohio Machine hold the #1 pick. Last year, they got jammed up. Peter Baum selected #1, did not choose to play Major League Lacrosse. Where do you see their needs going into this season?
Well, head coach Bear Davis should be kicked out of this room if he drafts another attackman, because they have stockpiled draft pick after draft pick in years past at the attack position. I think the top 2 are where this team really needs help. Midfield, and then defensive midfield. I like their close defense. Greg Bice, Ryan Neislick, Chad Wiedmeyer, not bad. You got Brian Farrell now traded from Boston at the long stick position. Joe Lisicki is a guy who's going to finish out his career this year at Virginia, but I believe that Ohio holds his draft rights. Attack is pretty good. Marcus Holman, Conbro Chill, Logan Schuss, Steele Stanwyck, Jimmy Connolly. That's a good group. So I just think you got to get better at the midfield. Dominique Alexander was a rookie last year. Jake Bernhardt was a rookie last year. They bring over Kevin Cooper. Those guys have potential, but they're not proven. Kyle Matisse, very good player. I think he's going to be a potential all-star in this league. And then they got 2 older guys in Billy McGlone and Steve Pizer. So no question, Ohio has got to take midfield. And if they don't take Tommy Shriver of Princeton, I'm probably going to walk out of this room myself.
Well, I don't want you to do that, because then I'm stuck here for the next 3 hours. So let's hope that they go with Tommy Shriver. And I guess just spinning it a bit forward, why is that the most obvious pick? You went through his skill set as we broke down the top 8 players, but why would it be crazy for them not to take Shriver?
Let's say they could take a Kieran McCardle or Jordan Wolf, but they don't need attack help. They need midi help. And what makes Shriver so appealing is his ability to pass the ball. He can beat his man. If he gets a short stick, the kid hasn't seen a short stick since he was in like 4th grade, okay? Seriously. He draws, the pole at Princeton draws quick slides right away, and still had more than 30 assists last year. So his passing ability is unbelievable. He can see defenses. I love the way he jams the ball inside or to the wing. His range got better last year. There early on in his career, didn't have a great outside shot. He stuck a couple shots last year from 13, 14 that I thought were terrific. He's got to be the pick for Ohio.
All right, well, let's see if he is the pick and see if Quint's going to stick around for the rest of the draft. Up to the podium, and Dave Gross.
With the first pick in the 2014 Major League Lacrosse Collegiate Draft, the Ohio Machines select Tom Schreiber, midfield, Princeton University. The Rochester Rattlers are now on the clock.
Ben Crowley, Ned Crotty, Paul Rabel, Joe Walters, Mikey Powell. All-stars from the moment they stepped in this league. And that's what you hope if you're the Ohio Machine, that not only can Schreiber be the leader of your midfield core, but that he can play at an all-star level.
Break him down in terms of his physicality, because that's one of the things we see. Rob Pennell came in, and he was ready to take the beating of an MLL season. Paul Rabel as well. Ned Crotty, surprisingly.
This kid's sturdy. I mean, he is strong. Really strong legs. What I like about him, like Ryan Boyle, an option high school quarterback. So he's got the ability to work, to work his man, but also with his eyes up, where he can read the defense with tremendous body control. The left-handed, right-handed shot on the run is a signature of all the predominant middies in this league. I mean, you've got to be able to get to an alley. You've got to be able to get to the other alley. The rollback move, but his passing ability. You think about some of the middies in this league. They're kind of one-trick ponies down the side, and they take that that alley shot. Schreiber's got a lot more depth to his game than that. Plays pretty good defense. At times he's played attack for Princeton. He's rugged. I see no reason why he's not the best player, and I would have taken him first like that.
Well, obviously there wasn't much surprise about this pick, but now is where it starts to get interesting with this draft. I mentioned off the top, the Rochester Rattlers did not hold the second pick earlier this week. On Tuesday, they made a trade with the New York Lizards that gave them the second pick, and then they also received Justin Turry. Now New York has the third and fourth pick. The Rochester Rattlers had a rough season last year, 6-8. Tim Sudan returns. He has 6 picks in this draft. This is a big one. Where do you see him going?
Yeah, my initial thought is Jordan Wolf. You see Tim Sudan on the left filling out his draft card.
Remember, they lost Ned Crotty.
They lost. Their attack right now looks like Stephen Boyle, Catalino, former Maryland player, big right-handed shooter, Kevin Lavelle, who I love, Mark Matthews. Now all of a sudden he's been shipped around quite a bit, the lefty. And I believe Jeff Fricaro is on their roster as well. They could use a speed guy, right-handed attackman, and Jordan Wolf, I think fits. My overall thoughts about what their needs are, they need a little bit of everything, So this is a situation where they got to make sure it's the right fit. I don't think they can go wrong in any area. They're a little soft everywhere, and if you think that Wolf is the best available attackman, then you can take him. Kieran McCardle's a guy that also appeals to me because of his passing skill.
Well, the pick's in, Quint. Let's see what the Rochester Rattlers choose to do as they rebuild this roster. Up to the podium, Commissioner Dave Gross.
With the second overall selection in the 2014 Major League Lacrosse Collegiate Draft, the Rochester Rattlers select Jordan Wolf, attack, Duke. The New York Lizards are on the clock.
Well, Quint, you know Jordan Wolf better than anybody. You called so many of their games last year. What are Rattlers fans going to see when he takes the field at Salem Stadium this summer?
He's got a burst that few in this league have. A guy like Will Manning, who plays in Boston, is quick, but Jordan Wolf is exceptionally fast in a 5- and 10-yard window, and he's going to put pressure on a lot of bigger, taller defenders to get down, to drop their hips down, and to match feet with him. And as we saw last year in the NCAA playoffs, it's difficult to do. Every time he drove right-handed, he drew the slide. Driving left, people kind of hedge him. They say, okay, as a lefty, he's more known as a passer than a finisher. But I love the way he improved last year. Kid's been a part of a winning team. He's coached by 2 Major League Lacrosse players.
Good point.
In Matt Danowski and Joe Sanoski, and I think that helps a lot. And he's playing against, in practice, you're going to see a bunch of guys, Lobb, Hips, Dupree, Casey Carroll, 4 guys that he plays against in practice who could get drafted. Casey Carroll's already with Charlotte. But so he's going up against great competition every single day.
Quick question here, because I think Kevin Lavelle is such a valuable piece to the Rochester Rattlers because of his ability to finish. But last year, he wasn't utilized because Crotty dodged to score a lot. Is Jordan Wolf a guy that can maybe become more of a passer at the pro level to utilize what Kevin Lavelle brings you? Because slides are going to come and come quick.
Yeah, well, slides are less likely to come like they do in college sometimes. You know, how there's predetermined goes, and they force the ball out of Jordan Wolf's stick. You look at Rochester's offense last year, you know, the influx of Dave Lawson had a very nice rookie year, midfielder. John Radigan played very well also. So they had that 1-2 punch up top. You know, they had Crotty behind and Lavelle inside. Crotty's not there anymore, and that's why I think Wolf's the right pick.
Okay, well, let's move forward to Crotty's new team, the New York Lizards. Now, they have the 3rd and 4th pick, and New York did a ton last season in the offseason, and they were the hot team going into the 2013 summer. It's easy to say it was a disappointment. 4-10. Rob Pennell's clearly the face of that franchise. Where should they go at 3?
Not attack. Ned Crotty, Rob Pennell, Steve Mock, Palasek out of Syracuse. It's a good attack. Defense. I mean, I look at this roster, and I did a visual 2 deep. You'll see. I don't know if you can see that.
That's gorgeous.
But you can see I did
It's
actually
green,
in
too.
team colors with New York Lizards. I have them with 6 poles. 6 guys who played pole in college. Steve Waldeck, Carol Lunas, C.J. Costabile, Kyle Hartzell, Dan Hostetler, and Tim Henderson.
Sounds like trade bait to me.
Those are all poles. They need close defense. One of these picks will be a close defender. I also think they need midfielders. They need Max Seabold healthy. They need JoJo Marasco to take that next step. They need David Earl to be a little more consistent. And they need Matt Strebel to keep drinking whatever he's drinking, because that fountain of youth is working pretty well. So I think one of these picks likely to be a midfielder, one likely to be a defender.
Let's see, the pick is in. At 3, the New York Lizards select who? Up to the podium, Commissioner Dave Gross.
He's there.
He's there. The pick is in, I promise.
Third overall selection in the 2014 Major League Lacrosse Collegiate Draft, the New York Lizards select Joe Fletcher, defense, Loyola. The Lizards are on the clock.
Joe Fletcher, one of the more talented and well-rounded defensemen in the college game right now. Quint, you mentioned as one of your top players, Joe Fletcher, maybe a guy that's a 2 or 3. Does that mean that they are keeping Carol Lunas at close deep? Do they have a number 1 defenseman? I know that's, you know, not really highlighting Fletcher as a pick.
No,
but
they don't. But Joe Fletcher is.
Why is he the guy? I guess.
Well, he's a big-time player in this league. I think he was one of 8 college players to get a tryout for Team USA. I love him off the ground. I love him as an off-ball guy. He's a lefty. Played at West Jenny. You know, he got his start at Shove Park for Coach Mike Messer. He's nicknamed Fletch, and he's got a little bit of Brody Merrill in him too. You know, the way he cradles and he runs up the field with his hunchback. The guy makes a ton of plays, and so he, as a goalie, this is the type of guy I want on my team. He's going to lead. He's going to orchestrate. He's going to talk. He's going to knock down passes. He's going to scoop up ground balls. He's going to cover his guy. Is he a number 1 cover guy in this league? We'll find out. But I cannot fault this draft pick by the New York Lizards, who need defense, and now they got to pick a midi.
Joe Fletcher is a name that came up
Or
with every
Michael Earhart.
coach.
You go back-to-back defense?
But here's the thing, and I was looking at your list when that pick came in. Now you have Fletcher along with those 6 guys that are more dynamic between the arcs, as you mentioned, pickoff passes. They still don't have that lockdown defenseman. Earhart's a name that comes up. McWilliams from UVA is a name that's come up. Dupree was a name. Luke Dupree from Duke. What would you do?
Well, this is a tough spot because, as I said, this midfield class, this is not the strength of this class. The strength of this class is on the attack. A guy like Kieran McCardle, who's a Long Island product, out of Suffolk County. Do you draft him and say you want to play a little midfield your rookie year? I don't know. For my money, he's the next best offensive player in the draft. Now, if you start picking some midfielders, we're talking about guys like Ben McIntosh out of Drexel, Jeremy Noble, Rob Guida, Rob Emery. I could argue that, you know, with this overall pick, you may not have to go there yet.
Well, Rob Emery's a guy that also is a name that came up, and it was a bit of a surprise to me, but he fits that mold of a big, physical, downhill dodger, and New York lost that in Stephen Pizer. He now plays with the Ohio Machine.
Yeah, Emery, 6'3", 205. He's out of San Fran. Blistering shot. You talk about a two-point threat.
Poor shooting
There are
percentage, though,
times,
correct?
yeah, last year he only shot about 26%. He only had 3 extra man goals, which is shocking. There are times when Emery takes shots in games that I am fearful for the goalie. No, honestly. There are times the ball goes in and the goalie never sees it. I'm afraid he's going to hit somebody in the head and hurt him, quite honestly. He's a major two-point threat. I didn't like Virginia's offensive patterns last year. I think they'll be a lot better this year, and hopefully Emery will be a little more involved in the game as a passer, as a guy who can draw slides and spin it, and then catch the ball, step downs off a ball movement. He got none of those looks last year. All of his looks were on alley dodges. Very rarely was Rob Emery having his feet planted, presenting a target, catching, hop-stepping, and shooting. Because if he did, he would have scored 40 goals, because nobody makes saves on him. He either misses the goal or it's in the back of the goal.
Well, the pick is in, and remember, at this moment, the New York Lizards only have 5 picks, so this will be their second of those 5 picks. Let's go up to the podium.
With the 4th overall selection in the 2014 Major League Lacrosse Collegiate Draft, the New York Lizards select Luke Dupree, defense, Duke. The Florida Launch are on the clock.
Well, Quinn, it looks to me like you have a lot of long, athletic defensemen that love to play in between the arcs and push the ball,
Yeah.
but I still don't see that quintessential close defenseman.
I could name. I love Luke Dupree. This guy's a beast. 6'5", very rangy, left-handed. Look at the career ground balls. Really played well in the NCAA
They're
tournament
missing
last
the
year.
21 penalties.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Which I don't think a lot of those will
One
get
of the
called in
themes
the
we
league.
saw, we've seen the last 2 years, the theme, teams that make runs towards Memorial Day weekend, the guys get drafted really early. Remember the run on Loyola kids last year, Maryland
Good call.
guys, and so you're going to see a bunch of Duke guys taken. There's value in good players from bad teams in this draft. There always has been. Guys who, really good players who play for scrubby teams, who GMs don't get to see in person, who don't make a run into the tournament. But getting back to the Lizards, Luke Dupree, very good player. Steve Waldeck, Karalunas, Costabile, Kyle Hartzell, Dan Hostetler. Those guys, when I think of team defense, they're not the first names that come to my mind. Obviously now Karalunas is going to have to go back down and play close alongside Fletcher and Pasavia and Scudin and Dirks. But these guys they're lone gunmen. They're out there, they want to check. When I think of team defense, this is going to be a tough group to get to play on the same page.
And it sort of spinning this in a different direction, because as I look at this now, Karalunas, in my mind, I thought was playing out of position, but he is a very good cover guy.
Excellent
So
player, great
in this
feet.
situation, they may have solved the problem of getting a long stick, quintessential long stick midfielder, and then make Karalunas just their lockdown guy.
Karalunas is fine at close. A very, very good player, all-star level player, but the matchup's got to be right. You know, he's not going to go out and cover Garrett Thule. You know, Thule's what, 6'5", 249 pounds. So the matchups, you got to pick and choose your matchups a little. And who does New York have that can stop the big, strong, powerful guys? A Drew Westervelt, for example. So one thing we'll look forward, don't be surprised if the New York Lizards move one of their long poles in this draft later on to a team like the Florida Launch. They got P.T. Ricci. Denver's good in that department. Charlotte's good in that department. Someone's going to be interested in one of their long poles. It might even be the Chesapeake Bay Hawks.
I don't think the Bayhawks need any more players.
Well, they could use a defender, but they are stockpiling. The New York Lizards are stockpiling long poles.
These decisions that were just made have clearly given the Florida Launch exactly what they were looking for, because the pick is in. But quickly, Quint, the pick's in. Where do you think the Florida Launch went? Because they immediately, once they saw Dupree go to New York, had their pick in.
I think they'll go midfield with this pick.
You got a name for me?
I got a name.
I'm going to hold you to something here in this first round.
I'll go Rob Guida, Johns Hopkins.
All right, we'll see. Let's go up to the podium. The Florida Launch with the franchise's first ever pick.
With the 5th overall selection in the 2014 Major League Lacrosse Collegiate Draft, the Florida Launch select Kieran McCardle, attack St. John's. The Denver Outlaws are on the clock.
There's no question that the face of the Florida Launch franchise is Kevin Crowley, your 2013 MVP, but they've drafted a player here, Quint, who you said you've seen a lot. I'll be honest, I have not seen him play. I've seen him on tape a couple times.
Very, very talented.
What can the Florida fans expect from this attackman out of St. John's?
Well, he's a quarterback of the offense. Look at his assist totals last season. Ball's in his stick, good size, he's kind of lanky. He's lefty, he's also righty. Loves to work the two-man games. Turns the corner, often gets blown up, pops right back up, has really led a resurgence of the St. John's program. Head coach Jason Miller. He works alongside Kevin Cernuto, who I think will be selected later on in this draft. It's a good pick. You know, if you think about Florida's attack, Garrett Thule, Kevin Cunningham, and Kieran McCardle, I think would be your starters. Then you got the Canadian influence. We're not sure how that's going to work itself out with the NLL. Jamison and Keogh. You know, will Casey Powell play some attack or some midfield? We'll see. You got guys like Zach Palmer and Chaz Woodson. I think that fit in very well there as well.
Quick subtext to this too, and we discussed this before the draft, and maybe St. John's makes a run, but if they can't make the tournament, Florida gets McCardell early, which is big. They've got their first 3 games at home, and they might be without a lot of their big-name players that are playing.
Up the folks in Queens right now, those are fighting words.
I'm just saying.
Those are fighting words.
I haven't seen them there yet.
Come on, Red Storm, prove them wrong.
All right, well, let's look to our next pick.
We often talk about need. At the end of the day, he's the next best player in the draft. You can't go wrong by drafting the next best player.
Sure. Denver at 6. Denver had that historic run through the 2013 regular season, but came up short once again at championship weekend. They trade away the face of their franchise, Brendan Mundorf. Where do you see Denver going here at 6? Remembering they still have guys like Sievert, Snyder, some big midfielders.
I like their midfield. That's where this team really separated themselves last year. Jeremy Sieverts, Drew Snyder, young players getting better. Terry Kimmener, a veteran who just seems to fit in wherever he goes, and then Zach Greer switching to the midfield. You add Cam Flint in the offseason, that's big, and you add Roy Lang. It's a very good and young athletic midfield core. Love their middies. I think they got to go attack or defense. You look at their close defense. Lee Zink, Matt Bachlet, Chris O'Doherty, and Ken Clausen's going to try to make it back this year.
That'd be great.
They could use a defender. They also could use an attackman depending on how much availability John Grant gives them. Is Curtis Dixon in the mix? If he is, look out. And then Sam Snow, I believe, will be a second-year player. Had a nice little, when he was given the opportunity to play last year, I thought Sam played very well.
We had an interesting talk with GM Tony Seaman right before the draft, and he mentioned that with the World Games being played this year, a lot of these Canadians, like Curtis Dixon, want to test their game at the MLL level.
At the end of the day, Denver can also use the short stick defensive midfield. I think they put a lot of pressure on Pennington and Landon Carr. You know, you get a Pat Laconey here or a Ryan Creighton here, that might be the right pick.
All right, well, let's see what the pick is. The Denver Outlaws, 14-0 in 2013, rebuilding
stay
a
local.
roster.
Stay local.
Up to the podium, Commissioner Dave Gross.
With the 6th overall selection in the 2014 Major League Lacrosse Collegiate Draft, the Denver Outlaws select Jeremy Noble, midfield, Denver. The Charlotte Hounds are on the clock.
Well, we heard you, Quint. Stay local. Not only do they stay local, but they get an incredibly talented player. But explain this to me. Midfield, we talked about all the strength they have at the midfield. Does he have some versatility? Does somebody else move around? How does it work?
He's a two-end midi. He's a great player. He's extremely tough cover because of his quickness and his ability to plant, change directions, good passer. You know, last year is not an indication of the true Jeremy Noble. He was hurt, missed 9 games. You go back the prior year, and I believe it was the quarterfinal game down at Carolina when he put up that 9-point performance in that epic game with Carolina and Denver, and the Pioneers winning that game on the road. He stole the show that day. That was one of the best games we've seen in the last 5 years in college lacrosse. I love Jeremy Noble. His brother's in the league with Jason. The kid's a gamer, and he fits right in.
Now, we brought this big picture with Denver, and a lot of people, how could Brendan Mundorf not be a Denver Outlaw anymore? As they try to rebuild this roster, maybe it's through the draft, maybe it's through trades, what do you think their big picture goal should be?
Well, as I said earlier, I love their midfielders. I don't think you need any more now that you got Noble to add to that mix. You got to improve your defensive midfield. I think your close defense has got to become a little bigger, tougher, stronger. You know, they play a great system in Denver. You know, they like to slide early and they recover. Jesse Schwartzman leads a really good D. But now without Mundorf behind the goal, who's your guy back there? You know, are you going to say right now Eric Law is your quarterback? Because when he played last year, he played great. But that's going to be a different. He was a complimentary guy coming in.
He's going to
last
draw
year.
A lot more attention.
He's going to draw a lot more attention. Chris Bocklett is Chris Bocklett. He's fine. You put him on the crease. Matt Gibson played great that 1 year, and then his play kind of suffered with he's got some injury issues. So we'll see. Attack and defense. They have to attack next.
All right, let's look to number 7, the Charlotte Hounds. 7-7 in the regular season, got their way into the tournament, and really made a massive statement by getting to the championship game, knocking off the Denver Outlaws, who'd gone 14-0 through the regular season. You see Mike Serino, Wade Lephart, the brain trust of that Charlotte Hounds organization. Quint, what do they need?
They did a great job last year, both at the ticket window, generating enthusiasm and a buzz down in Charlotte. I think I went down there 3 times. Had a great time every time. Loved the young fans. Family atmosphere. The tailgating reminded me of SEC football.
All-Star game last summer, too.
A young team. All-Star game, that's right. A young team. I think they need more midfield help. Jake Tripucka, good year. Hawes, nice year. You bring in Joe Cummings, who I like a lot. You got Brian Carroll and Davey Emma. You got some I think you need midfield help. Love their short stick defensive midfielders. It's really one of the strengths of their team. Josh Hawkins, Kevin Drew, Citadino, Schiller, the veteran. Defense is pretty good. You know, they got a little heavy on the poles with Flanagan and Poley. McCormick is a pole that played down low. They took a defender, I wouldn't argue, but I think they need punch from the midfield, or that third attack spot. They tried to play Mike Sawyer at midfield and attack. I'm not sure what's going to work best. Matt White did a nice job inverting from behind the goal. Is he a midi or is he an attackman? I'm not quite sure.
Spoke with Mike Serino earlier this week, and he said despite the success in the tournament, they were a 7-7 ball club. He said, we're hungry going into this draft because a lot of their second-year players, that's a year where you don't know what you're going to get out of guys like Tripucka, Sawyer, White, Poley, because they don't have that college season to get them ready.
I don't see him at the gym, but I work in a different gym.
Exactly.
So I don't see him at the gym. But that's Evan, you nailed it. Guys lose it. In Major League Lacrosse, if you can make it as a year 2 player, you're good for your career because you've shown that you're individually able to regulate your body, to train, to get rest, to work on your stick, to shoot on your own. It's that year 2 that guys sometimes fall off the map. They get a job, a 9-to-5er, and they put on 15 pounds. They show up in training camp a little out of shape, and they pop a hamstring. Thanks for coming out. See you later. What was impressive about Charlotte last year, I think they dressed 6 rookies in the championship game.
Young.
6 rookies. No one's ever done that. So the future is bright. They just got to continue to bring in some talent, and it always helps if it's got a Carolina flavor. But again, midfield, power on defense, and maybe another ball handler on attack.
Well, let's see what the Charlotte Hounds do with the 7th pick. It's in. Commissioner Dave Gross, take it away.
With the 7th overall selection in the 2014 Major League Lacrosse Collegiate Draft, the Charlotte Hounds select Michael Earhart, defense, Maryland. The Boston Cannons are on the clock.
Ryan Flanagan, definitely the face of the defense in Charlotte, but Earhart, Quint, a big guy, a cover guy, somebody you think of as you can put it close defense and probably leave him there for the next 3 or 4 years. What do you think about this pick?
You hope he's your number 1 or number 2 cover guy. Great size, well coached at Chaminade and then Maryland. Adequate feet, good speed, handle getting better and better. But the toughness is there. He understands the concepts. My only concern, and I had him rated as the 2nd best defender. He and Fletcher 1-2. My only concern is that last year when Maryland played Cornell in the NCAA tournament, they put Goran Murray on Rob Pinnell. Now, for my money, I would have put Michael Earhart on him, but I don't coach the Terps. But does that say that Goran Murray is a better defender? I don't know. That wasn't a ringing endorsement.
But it
from the
could be
matchups
one
in
of
that
those
game.
things where, and you brought this up when we talked about Brian Carolounis. He matches up with a
Yeah.
speed guy. Who do you put when you're playing Garrett Thule? Earhart's a guy that can guard the Thules of the world, John
Yes,
Grant Juniors of
correct.
the world.
The Westervelts of the world. It's a good fit for
Flanagan's versatile,
for a
too.
Charlotte defense that's fast but not that big. You know, Ryan Flanagan's a big guy. He's rangy. He's tall. He makes a lot of checks. Balls on the ground. He's got a great handle. I wouldn't call the Charlotte defense really physical though.
And the team as a whole had that grinders mentality, but I agree.
They're
Probably
most-
the most physical player,
Yeah.
Adam Gittleman in the goal, coming out,
oh
laying
my gosh,
the wood,
he
big
crushed people
hits.
last year. Hawkins, Drew, Citadino, Danowski riding.
Yeah,
Scare
Young,
me.
Ryan
and
Young.
Ryan Young will chase you down.
Well, let's look at
Whipping a
Boston.
stick like this. And
This
get
is
you.
intriguing to me. Boston.
Okay.
A team that has been synonymous with winning in this league for a long time.
Has the window
Last
closed?
year,
Has the window closed?
it may have. And to that point, spoke with John Tucker this week. His quote, and I thought this was pretty telling. We're paying for past sins. We're trying to stop the bleeding. Those are strong words from a guy who took over, tried to change what they were doing, tried to really steer the team in the right direction, and he did. They almost got themselves back into the playoffs after a horrific start, 5-9 last year. They have 8 picks, Quint. This is a big one at 8.
Yeah,
What do they need to do?
Well, again, the three pillars of this franchise, Brody Merrill now on defense is a Boston Cannon. That's a big deal. Paul Rabel, midfield, potentially the best player in the league. Got to get guys who can play with him. And then Ryan Boyle at attack. Still doing it after all these years. The weakness of this team last year, and it was a huge weakness, was their midfield defense. Their middies were getting run by like it was easy pass. I'm driving up 95 today. I mean, I'm right through them, and then this defense was sliding, and they got cut and sliced and then bled from the inside, and it showed up in Jordan Burke's save percentage. I think improvement defensively starts with their shorties. Are you going to go in the first round and pick a shorty in this draft?
In the names you brought up, Pat Laconey, Creighton out of UNC, these are guys that
Ryan
have
Creighton, Pat
shown
Laconey.
the ability to play defense.
Yeah.
Creighton's got some offensive game as well. But you mentioned that, and one of the things John Tucker, you can see him right there with the glasses, did is he put Paul Rabel at D-midi because he just needed an athlete that can cover. And remember, they had Cam Flint, who is a guy who is one of the best two-way middies probably in this league, had to trade him away. Obvious travel issues. He lives and works in Denver. It was a player that when we spoke to John Tucker, he said, one of my favorite players in this league. It was sad to have to let him go. So I think you're pointing in the right direction there.
Yeah, again, is now the right time for that pick, or will that be around when they pick next? Their issue is they don't really pick next for a while.
Exactly.
Down to 17.
17.
Paul Rabel was here tonight. He did not give us any kind of tips as to who they were going to draft.
Well, there's still some time. There's some thinking being done. We've seen picks come in quickly here in the first round. John Tucker is marinating over this pick, taking his entire 5 minutes that he's allocated.
You may as well, you see Coach Tucker on the right there. You may as well take your time. If someone has a trade offer for you, why rush it? The power is in your court. You hold the chip.
One of the big things we've heard when talking about the Boston Cannons, you brought it up, was the future. Ryan Boyle, maybe his last year in Major League Lacrosse. Matt Pasquet on the tail end.
Yeah,
They feel like they
Manning
have
did a nice job.
a replacement in Jack Rice, that should be mentioned. Is there a guy, an attackman who you can think of that's still around that could be groomed behind Ryan Boyle? McCardle was that guy maybe, but he's no
Justin
longer.
Ward from Loyola would be a passer that would fit there. But it's hard to play Boyle and Ward on the field at the same time.
Here's another intriguing thing when speaking with John Tucker this week. He brought up Brendan Fowler as a name that he really liked. Now you think, why would you take Brendan Fowler? You have Chris Eck. Chris Eck gets banged up a lot. He hasn't been healthy throughout a season for a while. And one of the things I heard, not necessarily from Tucker, but from around the GMs and coaches, was if you take Fowler and you have maybe a proven faceoff guy, he's great trade bait for a team like Charlotte who needs a faceoff man. So it may be high, but it's a name that I heard connected to Boston.
Somehow they have to help their defense, whether it's D-middies or whether it's another defender to bump Brody now to his natural position, long pole. And then later on in this draft, I think you got to find some middies who who can, take some of the burden off of Paul's shoulders.
Well, it looks like the commissioner, Dave Gross, is made his way to the podium. We see John Tucker, Kevin Barney, GM, looking over their notes. The pick is in. Let's see who the Boston Cannons select the number 8 pick. And to close out our first round.
Wahoo!
With the 8th pick in the 2014 Major League Lacrosse Collegiate Draft, the Boston Cannons, Virginia. The Charlotte Hounds are on the clock.
Well, Quint, one word to describe this pick, because we're going to go to break, come back, and we'll talk more about this. But Scott McWilliams, what do you think?
6'3", 205 out of Mountain Lakes. He's a #1 cover guy in the ACC, and that by itself almost qualifies you to be MLL capable. Really good feet, really active stick. I think he'll be a better pro defender than he's been in college. I think he's sitting on a big senior year. I think Virginia's going to be a lot better this year. Nice ground balls, 48 ground balls, huge cost turnovers. He'll throw checks. I like that. 36 cost turnovers, and this improves Boston's defense.
Well, that'll do it for the first round of the 2014 MLL Collegiate Draft. Stick with us. You're watching the Collegiate Draft on the MLL YouTube channel. We'll be right back.
Chesapeake Bayhawks have returned to the winner's circle. Time expires. It's official. Chesapeake, #1. The champions are from Chesapeake. You can believe in the Bayhawk dynasty.
It's Casey Crown.
Dodges left, stutters a bit, fires low, score!
Woodson again with another highlight reel goal. Wow!
Keeping up with Major League Lacrosse has never been easier. Get all the latest news, highlights, and scores right to your smartphone with the MLL app for iPhone and Android. Download yours today. Welcome back. You're looking at the historic Liberty Ballroom in the Marriott in downtown Philadelphia. The 2014 MLL Collegiate Draft. And Quint, we are through one round, 8 picks, and 4 defensemen have been selected. What do you think of what we've seen so far? Some surprise with the 2 defensemen taken by the New York Lizards. That's what jumps out to me the most.
I think if we went back to the history of this league, 4 defenders in the first round, I'm guessing would be a record. We've only had 1 defender selected #1 overall, and that was Ryan Mollett. But I can't remember the last time we had 4 defenders selected in the first round. As I said, I like the finishers in this year's class. Some of the attackmen, we're going to see a run on them, and the defense. The defensive class is really deep. If there is a positive for this draft class, there's good defenders still on the board. Guys like Joe Muir, Ohio State, Stephen O'Hara, Notre Dame, Henry Lobb, Chris Hips, Ty Souders, Bobby Lawrence up at Colgate, Jackson Place at Bucknell, Jack Riley at Johns Hopkins. So we're going to go deep. You're going to see a lot of good defenders with potential taken later in this draft. That is the strength of this class.
We now head into round 2. The Charlotte Hounds have the 9th pick. They have a lot of picks here. 9, 14, and 15. 3 picks in the second round.
Why is it that Chesapeake doesn't pick until pick number 21?
Have you looked at their roster?
And have you looked at this draft? Sometimes the way you can analyze a draft is go to the smartest guy in the room, and is he acquiring picks or is he trading picks?
So you're calling Dave Cottle the smartest guy in the room?
Wow.
I take offense to that.
He doesn't like this draft as much, I think, as he likes next year's draft.
I think his feet are up in the corner. Just kidding. Charlotte Hounds, the pick is in. Up to the podium, Commissioner Dave Gross.
With the 9th overall selection in the 2014 Major League Lacrosse Collegiate Draft, the Charlotte Hounds select Pat Laconey, midfield, Loyola. The Florida Launch are on the clock.
Well, Quinn, how early is it to take a defensive midfielder? It's a name that's come up already in this draft, and when you talked about Charlotte, you talked about physicality. At the defensive midfield, Kevin Drew, Josh Hawkins already on this roster. Was that a need?
No, but again, we talk about need and we talk about best player available. I like Laconey and Creighton as the best 2 short stick defensive midfielders in this draft. Charlotte's got a good little Loyola thing going with Lusby, Sawyer, Laconey, Hawkins, Greyhound South, so to speak.
And this is a team that was 7-7 last year, and they felt like they needed to come into this draft hungry. We talked about a lot of second-year guys. You're not sure what you're going to get from them in year 2 without that college season to get them ready. They called it a 3-year plan in Charlotte. Well, it was a year early because they made it to the championship game, but they're now continuing to build. You mentioned the Loyola connection, but young talent that want to be Charlotte Hounds. That's something that comes up whenever you talk to Jim McPhilby, Wade Lephart, GM, and head coach Mike Serino, and you see it when you go to those games.
Yeah, no, I saw it. I think we were down there 2 times last year for regular season games, and as you said, the All-Star game. It was an exciting place. I haven't been down to Charlotte other than for work at ESPN Regional Television, and that's in, outside Charlotte, but staying downtown, going to their practice. They got this old stadium with a beautiful surface, and the fans come out. And they're the type of fans that know lacrosse, but they're not spoiled by seeing the Hopkins and the Syracuses every day of the week. So they love their pro lacrosse, and that's pretty cool. And this team has a young nucleus. They're fun guys. They're right out of college. They're trying hard. They want to make a name for themselves, led by Matt Danowski. I love their attitude. I love their owner. I love their coach. And this is a bright franchise, and I think they're the model for all future expansion.
Well, that takes us right to our next pick, the Florida Launch, which is a roster filled with Hamilton Nationals. A lot of question about this roster. Spoke with Stan Ross this week, and he said he's still trying to navigate what he's going to do. 11 players on his roster play in the indoor league. He has 3 players on his roster that are either college coaches, 1 college player. Chris LaPierre still rights owned by the Florida Launch. There are a lot of good players, but just not sure when they're going to be available. So as he looks at pick number 9, you see Stan Ross right there, along with Jim Stagnita, former coach of the Denver Outlaws, going to join Stan Ross in Florida. What's an area they could go?
Let's keep in mind that they own the rights to Chris LaPierre, who was injured last year, who'll be a 5th-year senior for Virginia. And that in itself, I got best available at any position, geographical smarts. You're asking someone to commute down to Florida for half the home games. The power of this franchise right now is Kevin Crowley at the midfield and Tucker Durkin on defense. You got the charismatic goalie and Brett Queener with his bongo drums. You hope LaPierre can be a stud at his position, and then you brought in Kieran McCardle, to Kevin Cunningham, Garrett Thule, Casey Powell. It's a nice little group. Midfield help could be the answer. Pole, close defense. I'm not sure which direction they're going to go. All I know is when I'm covering the Florida Launch, you can find me at Rocco's Tacos.
Rocco's Tacos. You heard it there. Let's see what the pick is. Up to the podium. Oh, we might still have some movement here. You see Stan Ross speaking with Joe Spallina, head coach of the New York Lizards. A guy who always likes to maneuver on draft day.
Spallina,
See that white piece of paper? That could be a pick
doesn't
or
have
a
dress,
possible
he doesn't
trade.
have dress shoes on. He's got his New Balance. In case anything happens, he's got great quickness here in this ballroom. And by the way, this place is hopping. I don't know if you can see behind us. Wall to wall, Bud Light, Coca-Cola products.
You've got your Coca-Cola set.
Yeah, it's all diet. Good luck getting me to sleep tonight. No,
Thanks
this
to
is
our
a pretty,
sponsor,
so
Coca-Cola.
look at this. I mean, this is a real scene here. Lax Convention, over 7,000 people are going to come by here in Philadelphia. If you've got nothing to do tomorrow on Saturday, drive here to Philly, check out the convention. They got about 150 vendors. More neon. I needed glasses in the convention hall today. Everything's neon.
I'm not sure when that happened. It's not just lacrosse, if you think about it. Neon is the new thing.
I'm surprised that the Florida launch don't have more neon in their new unis.
Well, this is unique, folks. Remember, 3 minutes in between picks, but what could be creating this delay?
Can I show you
is
the helmet?
Possible trade talks as Quint goes and grabs that Florida launch helmet. You see Jim Stagnita, assistant coach now.
If you haven't seen,
That's a tight shot
there's
there.
the launch right there.
What do we think that the Florida launch mascot should be? Is it a spaceship?
Robbie the Rocket, maybe?
Okay.
Some kind of rocket? Or you think it should be like a...
I just like it because it's like my Delaware.
Oh, that
Blue
is
and
your...
gold.
Oh, man. Oh.
Well, folks, we're waiting here to see what this pick's going to be. But just to
What's the
recap,
mascot
Kieran
gonna be?
McCardell was the 5th overall pick
Like a
for the
rocket?
Florida launch. Your number 1 pick tonight. From the Ohio Machine, Tom Schreiber, the big-time midfielder out of Princeton, as we kind of look back at what we've seen so
The
far.
Toledo Rocket. It's one of my favorite.
Action.
Yeah, you could use him. Borrow him during the summer. That's a hot costume to be wearing down in Florida.
It's going to be some hot games down. in
Have they
Florida.
announced where they're playing yet? Are they going to rotate sites? What do we know about that?
I mean, we know that when we were in Florida before, it was FAU, which was a great venue, all-star game, I think in 2012.
That's Boca.
Yep.
Boca Raton, right?
Exactly. Yep. They're waiting. I'm not sure exactly
Is that Bull from Night Court?
is keeping this pick from being announced. Next up, the Florida launch. Waiting to take off with the 9th overall pick. What do you think's going on right now? What do you think's keeping it? Do we think trade?
No, the pick is in.
Pick is in.
Guy I mentioned.
Let's head up to the podium.
With the 10th overall draft, the Florida launch selects defense, Ohio State. The Charlotte Capitals are on the clock.
Well, the defensive storyline continues to
Unbelievable.
unfold,
Yeah,
Quint. I
yeah.
think that is now 5 defensemen taken in the first 10 picks. Half of the picks tonight, defensemen.
Never seen anything like it. Never seen anything like it. Joe Muir's a guy who went to McDonough High School, played mostly pole his senior year in high school. I remember watching him, and he was unbelievably successful as a high school senior. I thought he was under-recruited based on what I saw. Well, he ends up playing for Nick Myers and doing a wonderful job at Ohio State, a team last year that made the quarterfinals, beating Towson in the first round of the NCAA playoffs at home. And he'll jump right in as a pro. Can play close, can play pole. He's played mostly close as a Buckeye. One of my favorite places, Columbus, that north side market. Great spot for lunch, especially if you like all your ethnic selections.
You've got the Big Ten figured out. Muir fits into a defense, whether it be at close or pole, that is very young and very talented. Tucker Durkin, I thought, as good as Lee Zink was last year, he really came on at the end of the year. Maybe could have taken away that Defensive Player of the Year award. And then along with Matt Lovejoy, who's solid.
It's a good mix. You know, Lovejoy's physical, he's fast, he plays hard. Durkin's going to be your number 1 guy. Reed Acton out of Loyola, probably going to make Team Canada if he hasn't. I'm not even sure they've officially announced that, but Reed Acton, good inside. Jason Noble, more of a small guy with feet.
Can he take over? I mean, to say replace Brody Merrill is massively, overthinking it.
Yeah.
But can he at least give them some of what Brody gave them?
Yeah,
that
he's
play
your
off the
number
ground?
1, but his offensive game, his transitional game's never going to be like Brody, wing of face-offs, the ability. How many points does Brody have in his career? Probably around 100.
Yeah.
Nick O'Hara, long pole out of Duke's, been around the league maybe for a half a dozen years now. And then P.T. Ricci, who they brought over from Boston.
And P.T. Ricci's working for the Loyola Greyhounds, but it's in a operations position right now, so the hope is that he won't miss too much of that early season with that responsibility. All right, Charlotte up again here at 11. They've already had the 7th, 9th, and 11th pick. At 7 and 9, they selected Michael Earhart and Pat Laconey. Earhart, a close defenseman, Pat Laconey, a defensive midfielder. Offense?
Well, Justin Ward's on the board, attackman from Loyola. And then you got middies like Ben McIntosh out of Drexel, Rob Guida out of Johns Hopkins, Mike Chanenchuk out of Maryland, Rob Emery out of Virginia, Zach Lasko out of Penn. Do they take Brendan Fowler, a face-off guy?
I really think that that's where this team needs to go. I did a lot of Charlotte games last year, and every conference call, and I always appreciate Mike Serino's candid sort of way that he deals with the media, he said we have to be better at the face-off. I know that Jeff Snyder came in at the end of last year, was big, but will he be there after the NLL season?
Well,
he gets banged up every
year. But the problem with drafting Brendan Fowler is Duke's not going to be done with their season till when? And how many games? He's going to miss 1 or 2 games in April, 3 in May. So he's going to come in on week 6 of a 12 or 14-week season this year? 14 weeks. 14. So he's going to miss at least a third of the season potentially. So I don't know if he's the right guy to help spell Jeff Snyder.
They also have Tim Fallon on the roster, a capable face-off man. Well, the pick is in
Go to
at
the
11.
ACC.
The Charlotte Hounds. Up to the podium. Chanenchuk starting his career at Princeton, had a breakout year, then transfers to Maryland, a bit up and down. What do you think of this pick?
Very skilled offensive player, can shoot it on the run. His release is really nasty. He gets the ball out of his stick really fast. The main issue for Mike Chanenchuk is his health. He had a lower back injury, he's had some knee injuries. Inconsistent because of his health and how much push he has with those legs and the lower back. When he's healthy, man, he is scary, especially from mid-range when he can get his hands free. He's got a nasty release. It's just a snap. Reminds me a little about a Pete Poyon type release.
Now you brought up health coming out, or excuse me, time coming off of a long college season when we talked about Brendan Fowler. Number one, is Maryland a team that is also in that conversation where you might not see Chanenchuk until after May or Memorial Day?
He's setting me up here.
Or
Maryland
can
won't
he
make
stay
the playoffs.
healthy?
Maryland will not make the NCAA playoffs.
You're saying it right now?
That's what I'm saying right now.
All right. Well, Hounds fans expect to see Mike Chanenchuk
Come up with this
for
stuff.
week 1.
Don't quote me on that.
All right. Next up, Florida Launch. Back-to-back here. They've stayed defense at 10. Joe Muir, Kieran McCardell at 5. The 12th pick for the Florida Launch. Best available? And if so, who is that? Justin Ward's a guy that we keep bringing up, and we've yet to hear his name, obviously. Could he play with McCardell, or are they set at attack in your mind?
I think they're set at attack now. You go in midfield, McIntosh, Guida, Emery.
I think Guida's a guy that can fit in nicely.
Scott Loy of Syracuse. Fowler still on the board. They're good in the face-off department with Poppleton. John Lacasio of Villanova as a pole. Matt Harris, Syracuse as a pole. Steve Bogert, Penn State as a pole.
Testing 1, 2,
What do you
3.
think of
Can you hear
Guida?
me?
Because I look at that midfield and I see Kevin Crowley. Remember, they lost Joe Walters. Joe Walters, now a Chesapeake Bayhawk. He, in my mind, while Crowley was the league MVP, I always said that Walters was the most important player on the Hamilton Nationals because he really directed that offense from the midfield position. Is Guida a guy that can step in?
I'm having a hard time not get distracted with Funky Cole Medina behind us.
If you want to get up and dance, feel free.
I like Guida. Last year he had the shoulder injury. I don't think that's indicative of the player he is. He's great mid-range, left hand. He plays fast. He's kind of a slasher. Very good defensive player. People forget that at key times 2 years ago when he was healthy, when the game was on the line, he was out there playing midfield defense. So he can play both ends. Yeah, he's a little undersized, but so is Jeremy Noble. I see very little difference between what Rob Guida can do and what Jeremy Noble can do. They're very similar players.
Guida, obviously from Johns Hopkins, and in our conversations with Stan Ross, things that came up is he wanted to do what he did in Denver. And you mentioned that ability to play two ways for Guida. Kevin Crowley can play some defense. That's how they were successful in Denver. They left a lot of their midfielders on the field that made subbing tough for
Ryan
others.
Creighton would fit that mold.
Exactly. But the things that came up, we have to try and replace, not necessarily with one player, but what Joe Walters brought to this team. And again, I just keep going back to the roster challenges they'll have with the amount of indoor players that at the moment are part of this Florida Launch roster.
Yeah, that's beyond my skill level, how he's going to manage protecting the right guys and then activating the right guys without putting someone in an area where another team can grab them. So it's going to be complex. Stan Ross. Florida Launch is in good hands with Coach Ross and Jimmy Stagnita, as you see on the left. I actually coached Stan Ross. That's how old I am. Boys Latin High School, 1991, 92, I believe, before Stan played at Loyola for Dave Cottle. Got a good team. Bart Roskovich and Stan Ross were our two best defenders.
You know them all, Quint. Well, the pick is in. The Florida Launch continue to build their roster in the Sunshine State. Let's head up to the podium.
With the 12th overall selection in the 2014 Major League Lacrosse Collegiate Draft, the Florida Launch select Ryan Creighton, midfield, North Carolina. The Ohio Machine are on the clock.
On fire.
You're picking up steam here in the second round. Ryan Creighton.
You talk about the heart and soul of this Carolina team this year. This senior captain, leader of the defense, logs a lot of minutes. He is sturdy. He makes big plays. He digs in. He's the guy that's going to lead the Tar Heels back to championship weekend. Coach Joe Bresci loves this guy. He is a war horse. He can score in transition as he did against Johns Hopkins last season. He's tireless. He's a leader. He understands defense. Coach calls him an organizer. I absolutely love this pick.
And this fits with the mold. Again, Stan Ross comes from Denver, where he was an assistant under Jim Stagnita. Jim Stagnita now on his staff as an assistant, sort of swapping roles in Florida. And the goal with his roster, as he told us, was he wants to bring that two-way midfielder, guys that can play offense, be capable scorers like Landon Carr, Drew Snyder, but they don't come off the field when it goes into the defensive end. They stay there, and Ryan Creighton seems to be a guy that could do that.
Yeah, no, I think he and Pat Lacconi, to me, were 1-2 at that position. Let's take a look at some of the other defensive midfielders. You know, Mark McNeil, a guy at North Carolina, 6'4", 215, who was on the football team this year, could be an interesting pick later on in this draft. Late in the season last year, they moved his role to more defense. He bought in, very talented. James Malm of Johns Hopkins. And then there's just, you know, that's an area where we're going to see. I don't think the coaches are going to go in this round and pick any more shorties. I think they're going to wait that out. You can easily pick up a guy later on in the 4th or 5th.
All right, well, let's look at Ohio. This is their first pick since the #1 overall pick, where they took Tommy Schreiber out of Princeton. Bear Davis took over last year for Ted Garber. The team finished 2-12, and simply put, they just haven't been very good their first 2 years in Major League Lacrosse. Some roster questions. They have a ton of attackmen. This is their second pick, Quint. Where do you think they should go?
They played better late in the year with Bear Davis as their head coach. I thought he made a couple of adjustments. Losing Joe Cummings is not a positive. The strength of this team's got to be the attack with Steele Stanwyck. Logan Schuss, Marcus Holman, Conbro Chill. I like that group. You want to add another attackman and Justin Ward from Loyola, fine. But I think midfielder, you can't have enough midfields. When we look at the Chesapeake Bayhawks, okay, who we haven't called their name today, the champions, the dominant franchise, and I rattle off these midfielders: Stephen Brooks, Kyle Dixon, Ben Hunt, Michael Kimmel, McGreedy's, Pete Poyon, Joe Walters, Matt Abbott, who is the MVP of the league in my opinion, Shorties, Dan Burns, Jeff Reynolds. There's nobody who can come close. You can't have enough midfielders in this league, is what I'm saying, and Chesapeake has shown that.
But is that, I mean, I know we're getting away from Ohio, but I just think it's such an intriguing storyline. That, to me, is too many midfielders because you have guys there that aren't going to want to take weeks off, and there aren't enough jerseys on Saturday night to get all those guys in a game.
And guys get hurt. You know, Ben McIntosh or Drexel would be an interesting pick here. As I said, Rob
That's
Guido.
the Bayhawks brain trust there. You see Spencer Ford in the middle, Dave Cottle, and I think that's Brian Spallina,
Yeah, I didn't
the
see
long
his rings.
locks.
How many rings does he have now? He's not the kind of guy you want to get in a fight with when he's got like
Even
five.
without rings.
He's got like 5 brass rings. Coach Cottle wearing his Alabama tie. I can't wait to ask him about the Iron Bowl.
Lane Kiffin, now the OC.
You want to
at
stay with
Alabama.
us, folks. You want to stay with us. Dave Cottle is a huge Alabama Crimson Tide fan, and he doesn't know, but my first question to him is I'm going to ask him his reaction when Auburn returned the field goal with no time left.
Didn't you get yelled at enough by coaches throughout the college football season?
This is going to be great. This is going to be great.
All right, well, this is the Ohio Machine, their second pick tonight. Commissioner is headed to the podium, and that's where we'll send you.
With the 13th overall selection in the 2014 Major League Collegiate Draft, the Ohio Machine select Rob Guida, midfield, Johns Hopkins. The Charlotte Hounds are on the clock.
Second pick tonight for the Ohio Machine, and a second midfielder, Rob Guida, Johns Hopkins. We spent a lot of time talking about him as a possible Florida launch pick. How do you like how he fits in with Schreiber and the rest of the midfielders in Ohio?
He and Conbro Chill may have the best 1-2 hair punch in the league.
Which is really the most important thing.
No, he fits in. I love the way this kid plays. He's got a certain pizzazz to him. He plays with a smile. Hurt last year, so his stock goes down. You know, if he was on a team that made a run to Memorial Day weekend, I think he's going in the first round, healthy. But
why is that the case? I'm just curious. Is it just exposure?
Yeah. It's the last thing you think of, and everyone assumes that those individuals, you know, were responsible for that success. We've seen that 3 years in a row now.
That's true. Duke, I mean, at the moment, there's a sense that there'll be a lot of Duke picks.
There will be.
There'll be a run on them late.
You got Henry Lobb, Chris Hips, Josh Dion, who I follow on Twitter.
Have you been tweeting out yet? Have you gotten any questions yet? Let's see what.
If you're watching at home and you're active on Twitter, send me a question, and we'll see if we can get to it in our next segment. It's at Q Kesnick. At Q Kesnick. Send us a question. We'd be glad to answer it.
It's a good time to note that tonight we're going to take the draft in a bit of a different way here after the second round. We'll still keep you posted on every selection, but it may be through some graphics because we got some special guests that are going to join us in the remaining rounds. Some players, we'll talk to GMs and coaches about why they've made certain selections and what they may do going forward. And as Quinn said, send him as many questions as you can. If he doesn't get to them during the show, he will be up all night answering them, every one that he gets.
Yes.
That's a guarantee.
Who's up?
14, Charlotte Hounds. They have a stockpile of picks here in the second round. They're 14 and 15. And we've talked a lot about the Hounds, not only the fact they've got second-year players that they hope can continue that development, but also some guys like Danowski who seem to have a resurgence later in their career.
I was going to say Matt Danowski was such a revelation to watch him play last year, then to watch him coach. And I think coaching, being assistant coach at the college level at Duke, really helped him out. He saw the whole picture better. I just thought he really gave himself to the team. He set the tone with tremendous effort. I mean, every time, no one rides harder than Matt Danowski. I thought his shot selection improved, shared the ball, set a great tone, brought the young guys into the league the right way. He may have been the league's most valuable player last year in terms of what he did to his team.
Sure.
Being the glue of that team.
And he also is a major help to Mike Serino and the rest of his staff because he's coaching a lot of guys that'll probably be in this league in the next year or two. Let's go up to the podium and see what the Charlotte Hounds have for us at 14.
With the 14th overall selection in the 2014 Major League Lacrosse Collegiate Draft, the Charlotte Hounds select Brendan Fowler, face-off specialist, Duke. Charlotte is on the clock.
Charlotte's having a nice draft, if you think about it.
You say that every year.
And what they do last year, get to a championship game thanks to a lot of rookies. Mason Poley,
Big
just
numbers.
one of them. But look at Fowler, a guy that can come in.
64% facing off in a very difficult league, tough schedule. Played great in the NCAA tournament. 5 years from now, you could forecast Fowler to be the lead face-off guy in the league. Got to try out with Team USA, which I think will go a long way in his senior season and beyond. You know, it's one thing to face off against 18, 19, 20-year-olds. It's another thing to go against guys like Greg Grenlian, who we hope to have on the show in a few minutes. I mean, you're grown men who have thousands and thousands of reps, and they know all the tricks of the trade. What's most impressive about Fowler, he's a good athlete. Obviously, played football for Duke. His in-game adjustments are superior. He reads the officials better than anybody. His first 5 face-offs, he's 50% or less. But after that, once he understands a referee's cadence and when he understands what the competition is doing, he has always had answers, and he gets better and better and better as the game goes on.
One of the things that you have to talk about when you're talking about face-off men coming into this league, a lot more
Pitch
draws.
and pop. Oh yeah.
How can that affect a rookie face-off man as he's coming off a college season?
Yeah.
And then he comes into the MLL and you've got scores that are 24, 25.
I felt bad for Greg Grenlian and the A-Train, Anthony Kelly, last year in the All-Star game when they're taking every face-off. You can take 40 face-offs a game, anywhere from 30 to 40. Very few teams will face off 2 guys in the same game. Once in a while, you'll get a pole that comes in, give you a breather. But it is a challenge, especially when the weather gets hot and you got to train on your own. But Brendan Fowler seems to be a guy who loves to train, and by far the best Fogo in this draft, and a smart pick for Charlotte.
Let's keep the Charlotte discussion going because they have the 15th pick in the draft, and that's coming up. Big picture as you look at what they need to do, maybe not personnel-wise, but in year 2 to keep what is positive momentum going. What are some things that come to mind? Because they were 7-7. That's one of the things that gets lost in the fact that you make it to a championship game. You were 7-7, but it looks like the commissioner's headed to the podium now, so we'll see what the 15th pick is, and then we'll talk some more Hounds.
With the 15th overall selection in the 2014 Major League Lacrosse Collegiate Draft, the Charlotte Hounds select Thomas DiNapoli, midfield, Towson. The Denver Outlaws are now on the clock.
How about them Towson Tigers?
Right in your backyard.
This kid is a very, very good athlete. He's extremely explosive. He runs really well. He's got great hips. He is a nightmare to cover. Switched from midi to attack last year, and that coincided with Towson making a nice little run into the NCAA tournament. It was a Towson team, quite honestly, February and March. When I watched them play, I'm like, but Sean Nadelin did a masterful job to win the CAA, make the NCAA tournament. This kid had a big, big year last year. He can play attack or midfield, and his athletic overall skill set really fits this league well. It's a nice pick.
And you mentioned his versatility, attack or midfield, and when we look at the Charlotte Hounds,
matchup nightmare. He comes out of the box.
But they have a need at attack because you're not sold that Sawyer's an attackman. Lusby did not work out as I think they hoped.
Well, Ryan Young and Matt Danowski are your attackmen, and then you could rotate Sawyer, Matt White, or DiNapoli at attack. You could run those guys out of the box and create matchups. So I think that's how they'll use Tom DiNapoli to start. Out of the box, he'll draw a short, you take him behind the goal, Danowski comes over, or Ryan Young comes over, sets a pick, and good things happen. So he should get playing time right away. You don't draft guys this high to sit them on the pines, and I think he's got a shot.
Well, you mentioned that.
Stick.
We're at 16, and as we opened tonight's draft, we were pretty frank in the sense that this was a draft where there's some elite players at the top, but it isn't very deep. When do we start getting to the point where we're not looking at players that you really should be counting on if you're a fan to come in and necessarily be a breakout star, but it should be mentioned?
Not quite yet.
Okay.
My thought for this draft was 20 to 24, somewhere in that range. After that, then you got to take guys, you see something in a player that maybe I don't quite see yet, or fit your program, you have a role for him.
And that holds true, folks. If you look back, just the last two drafts, the 29th pick last year, Eric Law. We saw his massive breakout season. The 40th pick, David Lawson, big-time midfielder
Lawson
out
went
of Duke.
40?
40. And he was very, very good for a bad Rochester team in 2013. 2012, Drew Snyder taken 45th by Chesapeake, ends up in Denver. And then again, the 29th pick in 2012, Chris Bachman. So just to sort of paint the picture as we sort of trickle into the late second, third, and fourth rounds, while we may move to some interviews, there's some big-time players that will get drafted.
Steven Berger was Mr. Irrelevant, correct?
Jeremy Boltis as well, Rookie of the Year.
Six-time All-Star, was the last person selected. So a lot of this comes down to what these guys have inside of them. Do they want to continue to train? Do they want to be a part of a team? Do they travel for practices? How hungry are they? Do they want to get better? Do they want to take to coaching? Do they want to listen to their teammates on how it's done? And you know, if they're into it, then the sky's the limit. If they're more focused on their Wall Street job or their sales job or living in Portland, Oregon, then it's not going to work for them.
Well, Denver's up here at the 16th pick. They've only had one pick prior. Jeremy Noble taken 6 overall. It was a great selection in the sense that he's a dynamic player, but he also lives in Denver. This is a look at the brain trust for the Outlaws. On your left, BJ O'Hare takes over for Jim Stagnita. A lot of experience in this league. The big man in the middle, Tony Seaman, the GM. Who's best available in your mind at this point?
Oh, Justin Ward, Loyola.
Remember, they traded away Brendan Mundorf. No longer
Mark Cockerton, Virginia. Miles Thompson, Albany. Some attackmen I like. Ben McIntosh, Drexel. Rob Emery, Virginia, midfielders. Defenders, John Lacasio, the Pole out of Villanova. I like a lot. I'm surprised he's dropped this far. I guess if you're not 6'3", you're not as good. Well, haven't we learned that size is not a... When you go to the All-Star game, the one thing I noticed last year at the All-Star game, all sizes, one thing everyone had in common was they were fit. It was a really fit group. 5-10 years ago, there was more of a muscle tone, you know, more of the bulky Nicky Polancos of the world. Nowadays, guys are thinner and faster and more functional speed.
This league is a grind for sure. That was John Tucker just strolling through here.
Can't do that. He's offsides.
The flag has been thrown. The Denver Outlaws are a team, Quint, that last year did something truly special. And
losing in the semifinals?
Going 14-0.
Oh, that was unbelievable. And I look at this roster, I'm like, how did this roster go 14-0? Well, it's not the same roster.
But the point being...
Magical chemistry that we've never seen at the pro level. Guys following a scheme and a system and all the parts fitting perfectly. And guys made each other so much better than they look on paper.
And I think that there's this sense that Brendan Mundorf has been traded away. He was banged up a lot of last year. They won a lot of tough games without either Mundorf in the lineup or Mundorf not at 100%.
Best first midfield in the league last year. Jeremy Sieverts, Drew Snyder, and Zach Greer were by far the best first midfield. And Sievert-Snyder combo, one of the best in league history. I think one of the top overall 1-2 punches in league history from the midfield.
It's to me, it's one of the more sort of intriguing storylines to see how that team handles this season, because it has always been Brendan Mundorf's team, despite Lee Zink and Jesse Schwartzman being a part of it. Do they grab more control? Can they bounce back? To me, it's intriguing because Denver's always a team you got to worry about. And after last year and the disappointment of it.
New faces, Michael Simon, Chesapeake, mammoth, long stick midfielder who'll give them some size. That helps. Cam Flint's a positive new face. Matt Gibson on attack. John Grant. So it's not like they're sitting still. I do believe that they need some help at the defensive midfield position, maybe close defense.
Let's close out the second round. The Denver Outlaws have made their selection. Send it up to the podium. Dave Gross.
With the 16th selection in the 2014 Major League Lacrosse Collegiate Draft, the Denver Outlaws select Brent Heidken, face-off specialist, Stevenson. That ends the second round. We begin the third round with the Boston Cannons on the clock.
Well, Quinn, I think this is maybe the surprise so far, if not the second round, maybe the draft. Brent Hyken out of Division III Stevenson, taken with the 16th pick by the Denver Outlaws. Your thoughts?
71%. That's a ridiculous number. I don't care if you're facing off up against a bunch of mannequins. That's good. Opponent adjusted face-off percentage. It's always a critical point. When I talk to coaches about face-off guys, they break down the face-off stats based on who you faced off against. So your schedule, it varies. Like you could get a string of games where you're facing against a bunch of 35% guys, and so you rattle off good stats, but you haven't really faced the best guys. So that's going to be the challenge.
You know what I think stands out to me? He probably got a ringing endorsement from his head coach, who is one of the best
who's tight
this
with
league's
Tony Seaman
ever seen. So I'm sure Seaman asked Kendra Bene, is this a guy that can play in this league? Yes, that's why we see him at 16.
Let's go to Twitter. We got a second here to go to Twitter.
Sure.
We got a break coming up.
We'll tease the question. What's our question coming up?
Thoughts on goalies in the draft from CD and Matt Natelli when we come back.
Coming up next, stick with us. You're watching the MLL Collegiate Draft on Major League Lacrosse YouTube channel from the Liberty Ballroom.
Where's Boyd? Oh,
What was that? Watching the 2014 MLL Collegiate Draft live on our YouTube channel. We have now reached the third round. Let's take a look at what we've seen through round 1 and round 2. And then we will be joined by Ohio Machine head coach Bear Davis. Quint, this is a look at round 1. What's your big picture view of what we saw through the first 8 picks?
A heavy defensive flavor. This is a draft, I like some of the attackmen and the defenders overall. Tom Schreiber, the right pick for the Ohio Machine, number 1, midfielder out of Princeton. Jordan Wolf, speedy attackman out of Duke, goes 2. Joe Fletcher, Luke Dupree, they start the defensive onslaught. Kieran McCardle out of St. John's, Jeremy Noble, Michael Earhart, another defender, Scott McWilliams, another defender out of Virginia. We just had the pick number 17 come across the board.
Let's move into round 2. We saw with the next 8 picks, again, more defensive flair. Pat Laconi, defensive midfielder. Joe Muir, a defenseman out of Ohio State. Then Channing Chuck and Ryan Creighton, a defensive midfielder too. We're really seeing a theme here, Quint. Defensive midfielders. And Rob Guida, picked up by the Ohio Machine, and head coach Bear Davis, who joins us now to discuss, first off, the joy that you get in having that number 1 pick and knowing that there is a dynamic player that every team in this room would love to have how excited are you to get a chance to coach Tommy Schreiber?
I think Tommy's very dynamic, and as everyone knows, but more importantly, we want to really impress an unselfish style, and I think that no question he plays that way, and he fits really well with our middies that we have now, and we're excited to get that blend going.
I thought it was interesting. We spoke last night, and you mentioned when talking about Schreiber that he fits into what you want to do offensively, because when you were at Robert Morris, you took a system from Bates, who was at Drexel at that time, and is now his coach at Princeton. So there's a familiarity you feel like he'll have coming in.
Yeah, he definitely, I think, will make, he understands the reads and some of the things. And I think with them coming in after the season already starts, you want to look at that. You want to see how will this guy adjust in a quick manner.
Coach, when you look forward, I kind of printed out your like a two deep of your guys. What stands out, you believe, as the strength of this team, and what stands out as an area that you hope to improve? Attack, middies, D.
Our supplemental draft, that was an area we said we just need to become more balanced, and you'll see that some of the names you put on the paper here that we're a more balanced team, and I think that's good because that allows us now to come into the college draft and say where can we get stronger now, and that has been our goal, and with getting a player like Rob Guida, he's very dynamic, shifty, hard to cover, fits right in there. Cooper, we picked up Cooper in a trade.
A lot. I think he was on Chesapeake. He's just not going to get much playing time last year, and I think he's a real player in this league.
I think Chesapeake's at that point where they're just so deep that good players aren't going to play.
Yeah.
And a guy like him, when he played against us, we got a fresh, up front, close look at him. He scored 3 goals on us, so we said, yeah, it's a good player for us.
Yeah, he can play attack or midfield.
That's what we like too about him.
Chad Wiedmeyer, defensively.
Chad's a great on-ball defenseman. He developed last year, and I think Coach Mariano on our defensive side was real excited about what's to come with him. So yeah, I mean, for us, it's we got to get better at the short stick D mid position. That's an area, but you're probably not going to pick for the traditional parts in the first and 13th pick.
Yeah, not in this draft. There were 2 guys that stood out to me, Laconi and Ryan Creighton. After that, it's kind of
Yeah, and it's a
tougher.
need. Yeah. I know some people are looking at our draft saying, hey, maybe Guida's not a high need, but some of our high needs aren't guys you take at 13. You get a dynamic player like a Rob Guida at 13.
Bear, thanks so much for joining us. I know you got some more work to do.
All right,
some
thanks, guys.
coming up, rounds coming up. It's Bear Davis, head coach of the Ohio Machine. Had the luxury of picking up Tommy Schreiber, #1. Now, while we were talking with Bear Davis, Rob Emery was selected by the Boston Cannons, UVA midfielder. Quint, your thoughts on the pick?
I like Rob Emery. I think he's going to have a nice little pro career. As I said earlier, blistering shot, ridiculously fast. I think he shot 26% last year, 22 goals. But you run him alongside Paul Rabel, and that's scary because Rabel will dodge, draw 2, throwback, step down shots. They just got to get Rob Emery more looks with his feet set. And too often last year, he was running to weak angles and taking low percentage shots.
Now he's a name that we heard
good size,
may
good
go
speed,
early
San
in this
Fran.
draft.
Yeah, no, this is a talented kid.
Should be brought up.
And Virginia's offense will be better this year. I can promise you that.
In years past, we've talked about the Boston Cannons not taking the draft maybe as seriously as they should because they have so much talent, so much consistency when it came to their roster that they didn't feel like the draft was a priority. This year, that is not the case. When you talk to John Tucker, GM Kevin Barney, they feel like this is a year where they really need to build not only some players that can help this year, but so when we're talking about them in 2 years, they've got guys that are going to follow the Ryan Boyles, the Matt Poscays of the world.
One thing they've done in the past is the last 2 or 3 rounds, they've always made some local picks to have guys to be on their practice squad to show up for practice. Many of them didn't pan out. When you mention guys like a Drew Snyder who's taken in the later rounds, who becomes an all-star, don't waste picks on guys you think are bound for the practice squad. We got to answer some of these Twitter questions with these fans.
Good point.
Goalies.
You've got them.
Well, we haven't seen goalies so far, so who do we like?
And we haven't really seen goalies early in drafts.
No.
I think the last one was probably Tyler Fiorito out of Princeton was a high pick in 2012.
And he's not a full-time starter
and
yet.
it didn't pan out.
Austin Kaut and Nico Amato, Austin Kaut from Penn State, Amato from Maryland, should be the top 2 goalies picked. You could hear from guys like Brian Feeney at Penn, Peter DeLuca, Jacksonville, 55%. Jamie Faust is an interesting choice. Big Jack Runkle at Loyola, and then Greg Dutton at Ohio State. Those are the best senior goalies. Usually, everyone tries to wait, and then once one is taken, then there's a little mini run on goalies.
Now, next up is the Charlotte Hounds. They have a goalie in Adam Gettleman who came on strong last year, but he plays a style that could, create some injury. But a pick's in. Why don't we hear what Dave Gross has for the Charlotte Hounds?
How about a goalie?
Then I'll get.
He's literally right there.
Yeah, you go get him.
Twitter right on cue, helping us out. Running the show tonight.
You guys are all over it. You guys are all over it. Way to go. I got to congratulate the Twitterverse on that one.
What was his handle? Who was it?
What's going on?
They wanted to know about goalies, and they nailed it.
That's where the cool people hang out, huh?
Yeah. Austin Kaut, talented kid out of Penn State. Very quick hands. USA tryout, which I think will really help him. You get to play a couple of weekends during the summer against older professional shooters, and man, it'll change your life. Trust me, I was there. I got schooled at my first USA team tryout and left a mark.
Well, a guy that we think will probably be a member of Team USA joins us now, Rob Pennell of New York Lizards. Rob, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
New York Lizards, year 1, and now as you look to year 2, what comes to mind? What are the things you guys need to do to improve on what maybe was a disappointing year with all the expectations that were placed upon your team?
Yeah, I think it's been a great offseason. I think we've really, the management, Coach Spallina has done a great job of picking up maybe a few missing pieces in the offensive end. And, seeing the draft today, it's been a great draft, picking up a few defensemen that we certainly need in the defensive end there. So I think the problem last year for us was chemistry. I think, me coming in late in the season, we picked up Steve Mock a few weeks later. We really weren't able to develop that team chemistry until, a couple games left in the season, and by that point, it's really too late. So I think a majority of our team, if not the whole team, will be there for spring training and get us, started on the right foot.
When kids ask you what was it like to play MLL in your first summer, what do you tell them?
I'd say the physicality was the biggest change, and for someone like me who I think would have been used to the difference in physicality, it's still I won't forget after my first game I woke up and I felt soreness in my body that I hadn't felt for a while. The defensemen are just as athletic, just as strong, and they're pushing you. It's the slides coming, the checks, everything's just done at a faster pace and just at a more physical. So that was the biggest change for me that I really felt, and it was great to get used to that, and hopefully have me ready for this season as well.
When am I going to see you on the Wheaties box?
I'm working on it. You might have to ask Wheaties that.
How soon is that away?
I don't know. Hopefully, in the next couple months or so, but we will see. Not soon enough.
You've been training with Grenley or something? You're looking pretty strong.
I'm trying. I'm getting ready for Team USA, trying to do whatever I can, training with Max Sebald, and Greg is now our trainer. So.
Is it really?
Yeah, my trainer just left for Denver and moved there, so Greg Grenley will be training Max and I.
You mentioned training, and one of the things we talked about was rookies making that transition to year 2, where you don't have the college season to have the stick in your hand so much, and having those workouts every day that you have to be to. I mean, I know you're a guy that takes it seriously, but how much of a challenge is that? Because you got so much else going on as well.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing, and I think that's where you see people have success, is for those guys who are able to put in that extra effort in the weight room and doing conditioning and whatnot, because I think in the MLL you see those guys, they have that extra edge that have those physical capabilities to play a whole game and not be gasping for air and be able to take that physical beating week in and week out. So for me to be able to do that is extremely important. I found myself to have the most success when I've been able to train physically and take the next step there. So I think freshmen coming out, they're in shape, they're able to handle it, but certainly that is a challenge for the guys from their second year on. So being able to handle that is a big part of being able to play.
New York Lizards pick up 2 defenders so far in the draft. Joe Fletcher out of Loyola, Luke Dupree, a pole out of Duke. They had a lot of guys who play pole. Karolinus, I guess, is going to have to play close again, but you think about Stevie Waldeck, CJ Costabile up top, Kyle Hartzell now with his offense, Dan Hostetler can run the field well, and then Luke Dupree. My question is close defense.
Okay, yeah, I think a couple of those guys. I think Kyle Hartzell, understanding being traded to New York, I think he understood that he might have to play down low, and I think he was okay with that. I think he's played there before. I think Brian Karolinus will probably be in that pole position. I think that's where he's best. That's where I would put him. And then you have a guy like Dupree who's played down low before. I know in speaking to Coach Polina, he spoke to Danowski about him and said, he's certainly capable of playing down there as well. He's got the physical capabilities and whatnot. So,
how's Max doing health-wise?
Max is healthier as he's ever been. I train with him every day, so everything's healed for him. He's stronger than ever, faster than ever, and he's ready to go for Team USA.
We saw him last summer at Nike The Ride, and he was pretty banged up before the
Team USA.
He broke
his foot, and then he pulled his hamstring. Yeah.
So everybody made it back okay?
Yep.
Last thing, how's your brother doing in Virginia? Give me
doing great.
Give me some. I've been touting the Cavaliers as a team that everyone's kind of overlooking.
I agree. They're an extremely senior-oriented team this year. With Emery and McWilliams, I was hoping maybe the Lizards would get one of them. But they. I think this could be their year. Although they've had years in the past, but not too long ago. But he's excited. He says their senior leadership is great. They got LaPierre back.
What did you tell him about after his first year? Where do you hope you see improvement in his game?
I just want to see more consistency from him, and I want to see him take a little bit more aggressive role as a player, as a Dodger. Not just kind of be a third guy out there. And just a shooter, off-ball guy. I think he's great with the ball on his stick. He's a great athlete, and I think once he develops some confidence, playing at the college level, that he'll be able to take that next step. So I told him his biggest thing is just working outside of practice, in the weight room, and working on his own game. Whatever it may be that he needs to work on, which I'm sure there's plenty of there, as there is for everybody. So I'm hoping that he has a great season this year. I'm his biggest fan, and I'm looking forward to being able to watch him play for the first time.
Rob, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck this season. Stay healthy.
We'll see you in Florida in a couple weeks.
Let's wrap up what we've seen, or what we haven't seen, while we were joining with Rob Pennell and Bear Davis. At 17, the Cannons selected Rob Emery, UVA midfielder. The Hounds took Josh Dion, attackman from Duke. The Boston Cannons select Austin Kaut, goalie from Penn State. He'll help the depth there with Jordan Burke. The Rochester Rattlers get a guy I know they wanted, Miles Thompson, attackman from Albany. The Bayhawks select Matt Harris, long stick midfielder from Syracuse, a guy who Dave Cottle was hoping would be there at 21. Nasty defenseman is the way he described him.
Coach Cottle had to sit a long time, and he wanted a pole. Matt Harris, I think, is going to make a better pro player because he's really fast. Chicago area kid. I remember seeing him down in Florida when he was a high school senior. Flies up and down the field. Really, really good athlete. Got a nasty twinge to him. Nice ground ball totals last season, and he's sitting on a good senior year.
And joining us now is Cheryl Calalori. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's been an unbelievable thing for the Headstrong Foundation and Major League Lacrosse to partnership for a number of years here, all-star games, and now we take that to another level. Here, I'll give you this mic so you can tell us more about what we can expect from the partnership.
Very excited about it.
2014.
Absolutely. The campaign is actually called Burn Cancer, and all the teams will be part of it for the week of July 28th through the first week of August, and each team will be sporting the lime green, in honor of Nick. And our goal is really to raise awareness regarding blood cancer, and maybe we touch someone in part of the country where we don't have feet, and really expand, the breadth of the work that we do, and perhaps we inspire somebody to join our cause, or perhaps someone brings to our attention a family in need of our services. So, we've emerged over the past 6 years as a national nonprofit, deeply ingrained in the sport of lacrosse. We're so proud and privileged, and who would have thought that this would have happened? And we're humbled and just delighted to have this partnership with MLL this year.
What can fans do that week to get involved?
We welcome visits to our website at www.headstrong.org. Support us with a small donation, purchase their own awareness apparel, wear that lime green with pride, knowing that 96 cents of every dollar goes directly back to our fight. And that is improving quality of life for patients and families dealing with blood cancer. There's 1.5 million Americans dealing with the disease that took my son's life, and there's about 1.5 million lacrosse players. So it's funny, those synergies, but you know, we exist because of the sport, and we're so grateful for that.
Well, Cheryl, it is amazing the growth that you guys have had in such a short period of time, and it's a testament to the hard work that you and your family has put in, and we look forward to this growing and more success this summer and in the future. Thanks so much for joining us.
Raising $5 million to date in my next name. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks for joining us. Good luck and enjoy the night.
Thank you guys, really.
Oh, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
See you later this summer.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks to Cheryl and the Headstrong Foundation. That'll do it for round 3. We'll show you what we missed as we spoke with Rob Pennell and Cheryl Calori. We're coming to you live from the Liberty Ballroom at the Marriott in Philadelphia. You're watching the 2014 MLL Collegiate Draft on Major League Lacrosse's YouTube channel.
Baltimore Bayhawks are the 2002 Major League Lacrosse champions.
Ryan Boyle scanning, scores! Philadelphia is the champ in 2007.
Time has expired off the clock. This one for all the beans finally goes to Boston.
In transition, also two, he scores! Oh yeah, Matt Danowski! Behind the net.
Young got hit, Sawyer made his move in the crease, his flags fly.
Trying to get free. Low shot, blocked away, rebound! Young scores! Ryan Young finds the ball and buries it for Charlotte! Game winner in overtime, and the Hounds have done it! Oh, team magic for Charlotte tonight!
Keeping up with Major League Lacrosse has never been easier. Get all the latest news, highlights, and scores right to your smartphone with the MLL app for iPhone and Android. Download yours today.
Looking to be the hero in front there. Whoa! He fires and scores! The Long Island Lizards jumping for joy. Victory in 2003. Powerful blast, fires and scores! Casey Powell.
First title for the Rattlers from the Flower City.
The champions are from Chesapeake. You can believe in the Bayhawk dynasty.
Welcome back to the 2014 MLL Collegiate Draft from the Liberty Ballroom in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We're about to kick off round 4 of the draft. Remember, it's 8 rounds, 64 picks. While we're talking with Rob Pennell and Cheryl Calori, here's some of the selections that we had. Rob Emery, midfielder out of UVA. Josh Dion, attackman from Duke, heads to Charlotte. The Cannons pick up Austin Kaut, goalie, Penn State. Rochester Rattlers stays local with a talented attackman in Miles Thompson. Matt Harris, a nasty defenseman from Syracuse, a guy that Dave Cottle wanted in Chesapeake. The Outlaws stay with a defenseman in Ty Souders from Lehigh. And Justin Ward, a guy we thought might go higher, finds himself in Charlotte. Attackman from Loyola, Quint. Justin Ward is a guy who we thought might go a little bit higher. What do you think he brings to the Hounds?
Well, I like Justin Ward a lot. Look at his assist totals, 35 assists. You know, coming out of high school, mainly just a passer, but his game is getting better and better. in terms of turning the corner. I got a tweet from a fan here earlier, a guy who actually played with Justin Ward, played against him in the high school, and he's put together 2 really good years. What I liked about Justin, he's getting stronger, so he's able to deal with defensive pressure, stronger in his shoulders and his hips. And he was bouncing off of defenders and finishing while falling to the ground. And I thought last year, as their season went on, I just thought he was doing a better job of turning the corner and getting to the goal.
Well, I stand corrected. We just wrapped up the 3rd round. The final pick comes from the Chesapeake Bayhawks. Quint, they take Dylan Levings, face-off man from Yale. That was a need for Dave Cottle in Chesapeake. Obviously, Alex Smith seems to be done with his career. They had, issues at the face-off game. That's one area where Dave Cottle felt like he needed to find a guy. But joining us now, Charlotte Hounds, Max Schmidt. Brett Schmidt, excuse me. It's a busy night, man.
As Quinn said in college, Brett and Max Schmidt, no relation.
It's tough, but
I got it right, see?
You got it right. I'm 0 for 1.
I always make sure I have an initial next to it.
There you go. But as you look at what you guys have done in Charlotte, not just in tonight's draft, but as we look back to last season, 7-7, but then you make that run in the postseason. How much momentum does that give you going into this summer?
I think a ton. I mean, having a lot of young guys, getting that experience in the MLL playoffs, making a championship weekend, beating undefeated Denver. I mean, it gives us confidence going into this year. We have some great young guys coming on. We're a young team as it is. Have some great veteran leadership. Danowski, Gittleman's the leader of their defense. So, we're putting ourselves in a great position.
You guys are like Team ACC. How about the Maryland guys? How many are there now? Like a half a dozen?
I love it. I mean, I'm in there every day. Jim McPhillamy and Wade Leapart up at the front office. I'm trying to get as many terps. But, I mean, they take ACC guys. They know how to win championships. They know how to play.
Does it help to have that kind of chemistry? Those expectations, are they similar when you have so many guys?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we know the backgrounds of, Earhart coming on, Chandenchuk. They played under Tillman at Maryland. And, we expect high things from them, and we're excited for them to get there.
4, 5, 6 Maryland, 7 Maryland, I count.
Hey, I love it. I'm not complaining.
What is it like to play in Charlotte? Quint and I have talked a lot about enjoying to go there to just call a game because the fans are into it. Stadium's right there by the city. Yeah. There's a tailgate atmosphere. As a player, describe, if you could, what it's like to be a professional athlete in that city.
I mean, it's undescribable. It feels like, we're in the NBA or the NFL. In the epicenter there, they have the Charlotte Hounds up for everyone to see, playing there in the summer. It's a big deal. And Jim and Wade do a great job of marketing it. And it's, it's unbelievable. I'm happy to be there, and I want to stay there for a long time.
Now, we've also talked a lot about the youth on this team. When you guys are, whether it's emailing, texting, making sure that guys come into this season in shape, prepared, because there are a lot of second-year players, guys like Mason Poyle, Sawyer, Matt White, all these players that had big years for you, but you want to see that continued growth. And year 2 sometimes is a challenge, something you would know.
Yeah, I mean, they come from great programs. They want to win, so I don't think we have to worry about that as much. They're not getting married, they're not having kids like some of the older guys run into in this league. So they still are focused on lacrosse, and it's been wonderful so far. I think we have a great year ahead of us. Some great players, so we're excited to see what it brings.
What's going to make the difference now? Getting more wins during the regular season, winning a championship. What did you guys learn last year?
I just think it comes from experience. We had some tough games last year, some tough losses, some big wins there at Denver at the end of the year. So I think it's just taking what we learned last year, translating it to what we can do this year, and seeing where it goes.
Well, Brett Schmidt, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
Look forward to catching up with you down the road. Good luck this season.
Way to go.
Thank you.
You're healthy this year.
I am.
Right from the start.
That's all good.
Right from the start. Can't be benching so much.
I know.
Well, obviously, we'll catch you up on all the picks you missed while we talk to Brett. One thing we can tell you is Ohio kicked off the 4th round by selecting Jackson Place defenseman out of Bucknell. Quint, this is a guy I saw doing a bunch of Patriot League games. that is a ground ball machine. He's a big guy, low center of gravity, cover guy, but can also make plays in between the box.
So you like the pick?
I think so. I think that Ohio's a team that needs to get a little bit younger at defense. I don't think Greg Weiss has a ton more years in his game, so I think Jackson Place is a guy that can come in and maybe add some depth.
Next pick, John Lacasio, Villanova. After place.
To Rochester at
to
26.
Rochester. Yeah, there's an amazing amount of defenders going in this draft.
Speaking of defenders, we're joined by one of the best defenders in the MLL, Mike Evans of the Chesapeake Bayhawks. Here's your mic here, Mike. How we doing?
Doing well. This is exciting. It's a huge turnout this year. It's great.
It is, and the Bayhawks haven't been busy because you guys have been busy in the offseason. You bring in Brendan Mundorf and Joe Walters. I know you're on the defensive end. You get some help there maybe in Brian McGill, but I guess if you could, coming off a championship to now have even more talent has got to be an exciting thing for you.
No, I mean, it's definitely exciting. They call Coach Cottle the maestro for a reason. He's always, behind the scenes doing things and making trades, and he definitely knows how to mold a team together, and especially a championship team. So we see that in the last offseason, so I'm excited to be a part of this next season.
How does this team continue to be dominant each year? And last year we did see during the regular season a period where we thought, maybe this isn't the year for the Bayhawks, but at the right times and the right moment, you guys always seem to play your best across.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a battle-proven team. We've been tested, and we've been fortunate to put things together in the end. And I think that's it's credit to our staff, organization, our owner. We really believe in what we put on the field, and it's definitely worked out the past couple of seasons. So
I did the two deep of your team here. You can't really see it.
Keep showing those two deeps like anyone could see it. You're so proud of them.
This is ridiculous stuff.
Yeah,
Brooks, Dixon, Hunt, Kimmel, McCready's, Poyan, Walters, Abbott, Swingman.
Yeah.
But that is ridiculous, that amount of midfielders.
No, it's a great squad, and I again, it credits our organization, our GM, our coach, our owner that they put a squad on the team. It's honestly remarkable that they're able to get all those guys on one lineup. So we're definitely fortunate.
You're looking fit.
Trying
Team
to,
USA keeps all you guys in shape.
Yeah, it's great.
It's amazing. It takes off 5 or 10 pounds of everybody.
It's nothing to complain about.
Extends your career, keeps you focused.
The off season's not as long. Yeah, it's great. So definitely staying in shape and excited to get back out there.
What can we expect to see from some of these veterans? Brian Spallina coming back, Nicky Polanco coming back.
I think they're definitely going back. I think you'd have to kill him to not bring him back. So it's. Brian's a great teammate, Nicky as well. I'm excited to have both of them come back on the team, and it's a veteran-led defense, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
And now you got your buddy, Brendan Mundorf.
Brendan,
you don't have to bang against him and hurt him every week.
No more running into a brick wall against Brendan. He's he's extreme, competitor. I'm very fortunate to have him on the team, and he's a great person, more importantly.
Last year, what's left for this team to do? I mean, what do you guys want to prove this season? I mean, is it just as simple as win another championship, or?
No, I mean, I think the ultimate goal of any team is to play to your potential as an organization. With this talent that we have on the team, there's a lot of talent in the league, and but when we look at our team, we should have, we should set the bar pretty high, and whether you want to say it's a championship, we want to take it a day at a time, a game at a time, a practice at a time, and just play the best we can.
What draft pick were you?
I think I might have been a third-round pick.
Third-round pick?
Yeah, it was
multiple first-team All-Pro, potential
third-round
Team
pick.
USA. Well, I've never seen more defenders go than this year.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting.
Big class. Any words of advice for any of those guys out in YouTube land who are watching, some of these young defenders who are going to come in the league?
Just be ready to play. The game's a lot faster. It's definitely more one-on-one. Not to say that team defense isn't important in MLL, but it's definitely a one-on-one league. And just be ready to get after it.
So don't expect help.
Yeah, there's no help and there's no stalling, so get ready.
Sounds good. Well, Mike, thanks so much.
Thanks
Good luck
guys.
this season.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Enjoy the off season. That's Mike Evans, defenseman from the Chesapeake Bayhawks. Look, we'll play catch up. We know we missed some picks here while we've talked to some
They're
players.
hammering me on Twitter for missing
You're watching the 2014 MLL Collegiate Draft from the Liberty Ballroom in Philadelphia. Quint's got Twitter questions coming up as well.
crossing. Stanwyck, Conley, feet in front. Matisse scores!
Low shot into the corner, and another goal for Logan Schutz.
It's the Pennsylvania Convention Center, home of the U.S. Lacrosse Convention this weekend, and also home to the MLL Collegiate Draft. We're in the Liberty Ballroom next door at the Marriott, and we are making our way through a draft that, as we described it, was full of talent at the top. But don't forget, folks, there are players that will be selected in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, even 7th and 8th round that I promise you will make a difference at some point, either this season or next. History has just proven that, Quint. And as we look back at what we've missed as we talk to some players and GMs and coaches, to begin the 4th round, Ohio took Jackson Place, defenseman out of Bucknell. Rochester, John LaCasio, long stick midfielder, Villanova. Ohio, Scott Lloyd, midfielder from Syracuse. And then just as we came back from break, Ty Thompson, the Rattlers. Both Thompsons now in a Rochester uniform.
Best players on the board right now. I'll go through it, all positions. Mark Cockerton, Virginia attackman, 49 goals last season. Guy can put the ball in the net. Brandon Mangan, Yale, quarterback. Alex Love, shooter from Hobart. Sean Wright, 6'7", out of Providence. Brandon Ben, he can score too. Ben McIntosh, Drexel. Tommy Lacrosse, Zach Lasco, midfielders. Goalie Nico Amato, just taken.
And that was one of your questions from Twitter about goalies. Let's hit up another Twitter question. Nico Amato just selected by the Florida Launch.
We got a good Twitter question here about face-off men. Aside from Brendan Fowler, who do I think are the best face-off guys?
And remember, Dylan Levings was just selected by the Bayhawks.
Heiken is gone. Jordan Ardello of Rutgers, I believe he's a senior. He's 62% last year. It's pretty darn good. Tyler Narr's a pole for Georgetown. He's had some knee injuries in the past. As you look at the Beast, Granlian. Tyler Narr was 62% last year. Phil Poe, 58%. But a guy I really like is the kid out of Cornell. And I always struggle to pronounce his last name. Doug Tesorario.
That's pretty good. You struggle with
No, I don't. No, I can sing it, I just can't say it. So if I sing an opera, it comes out. La Marinara! See? But I can't say it. I was telling him about Bart Ross. Hold this mic up.
Joining us now is Stan
Bart
Ross,
Roskovich is going to be brought in as your assistant
former
coach.
defenseman.
That's where we are. We are off the tracks. Call up Bart. You need a defensive coordinator.
We do. He'd be great.
There's about nobody out there who's laughing at that joke.
But you and I.
I'm laughing at the fact that you coached this guy back in the days at Boys Lat.
Long time ago.
One of my first years in coaching.
Well, Stan, as we look at the Florida Launch and what you guys are trying to do, we know that it's a roster made up
players after the games
of Hamilton Nationals. What was the goal with this draft, and how do you feel like it's gone so far?
I feel like we did a great job picking up the guys we needed. I think, when we traded Joe Walters, we needed somebody to try filling in that role to be able to get Crowley the ball, and I think we got somebody that can do that. I think he can dodge, and I think he's going to help us at the offensive end.
And as you look at Muir, Creighton, and Nico Amato, guys that all offer defensive presence.
They do, but they're also playing in the best competition in the NCAA. We're all ACC players. They're all great players. Creighton is one heck of an athlete. He's doing in the weight room. He's leading the team in vertical jump and in some of their testing that he does. Nick Amato sees the best shots in the country with the schedule that they play. And Joe Mary, he plays a lot of. He's covering the number one attackman game in and game out. So I think we did a great job in our draft picking guys that can come in and help us right away.
You talked about bringing over some of the foundations that made Denver a successful program. What would those be?
I think we're going to play team ball, and we're going to play as much as you can team defense in this league. I would love to be able to have 4 practices leading up to a game. I think when you only have 1 or 2 practices or 1 practice and a walkthrough before a game, there's not a lot of stuff you can do. You watch film of the team, you're like, this is what I would love to do when you play a team, but this is what we got to do with the preparation time that we have. So you got to find guys that can kind of play in a system and that can work well together, and I think we got some system guys that can do that.
what's the biggest challenges that you're facing right now as a franchise? Venue, ticket sales, like big picture stuff.
Well, I think we're still looking for a venue. You know, we're putting the pieces together. You know, we still got to figure out our roster with some of the guys. You know, transition. A lot of guys living in Canada and up in the north, central New York area. Getting those guys and figuring out how we're going to get them down to Florida for the games, I think is going to be a little bit of a challenge as well.
Beyond the challenges, though, Stan, you're a guy who lives in Florida, works in the high school level, you know, as a dean of students. What can we expect from the fans there? Are they hungry for a professional team?
I think the fans are going to be great. I mean, you look at Florida. There's no college teams down there. There's a couple D2 teams. But we're going to be a draw. I think we're going to be important. You saw the All-Star game down there. They had close to 5,000 people for that. Last year's game, they had almost 4,000 people for. You know, I think we're going to be drawn. You got guys like Brett Queener who are going to get the fans excited. I mean, the display he put down in the All-Star game down there, people are still talking about. You know, I think we got Casey Powell now, a local guy. Cooper Smith, who grew up down there and played at St. Andrews. You know, we're getting some guys that are going to be some names for the Florida people to really wrap their arms around.
When you think about, Casey Powell, Kevin Crowley, Tucker Durkin, Queener's personality, there's a lot for the fans to rally around.
I think so, and I think we got, you know, I think our defense, we're going to be a defensive-minded team. I think that's going to help. I think our middies, you know, one of the things that I think we did at Denver, we did really well, is have middies that can play two ways. Guys that can play defense and can maybe trap an offensive midfielder on the field. You know, and I think we got guys on our schedule that can do that. And I think that's really going to help us in this year at Florida.
Stan, thanks so much for joining us.
No problem.
Good luck the rest of the night. You still got some work to do. 3 more picks, the 45th, 53rd, and 61st.
That's right. We got a couple more.
All right, well, enjoy the rest of the night.
So we missed Colin Dunster to the Denver Outlaws.
Mitty out of Bryant. Also the Charlotte Hounds. Henry Lobb, another Duke guy, defenseman from the Blue Devils.
The Lobster. Where'd he go? To Charlotte. Oh, I love the Lobster's a good cover,
Charlotte
man.
continue to build that ACC roster.
Henry,
I didn't really realize that until you brought it up.
Oh my gosh, their whole
Brett
team.
Schmidt, I realized, Twitter you can tell me that it was
between Duke, Maryland, and Virginia, it's like their whole team. Really, seriously.
Well, how much of a factor do you think that is as we look
I think it takes away an unknown. It's like drafting a football player out of the SEC. If you're a starting cornerback in the SEC or a starting tackle, you're going to get a look because you're covering professional level defensive ends and professional level wide receivers. So that's one thing that the GM doesn't have to worry about. Like when you take a guy from a lesser school, as I said earlier, with the face-off man, like there's that opponent adjusted. Well, there's nothing you have to adjust because if you're playing in the ACC, you're playing against the best on a week-to-week basis, and the coach doesn't have to worry about whether you can handle the level.
Along those lines, Denver takes Colin Dunster out of Bryant. I talked to one coach over the course of this week, and his name came up, Colin Dunster, and he said he thinks his best lacrosse is ahead of him. He was a guy they were looking at. What do you know, and what do you think we could expect?
I don't know much. Well, from a midfield position, I'm waiting to hear Ben McIntosh out of Drexel, scored more than 30 goals last year. Zach Lasko out of Penn, big production, going against the pole. He's got a really nice burst, kind of a north-south speed guy. I like the fact that Scott Loy went. I think he's sitting on a nice year. He had 20 goals last year, shot 35% in that motion offense for a Syracuse team that won 16 games. So Loy's going to be their best midi this year. So that was a nice pick. There's some goal scorers still out there. Guys like Brandon Ben, Kevin Cernuto, Sean Wright of Providence, 41 goals. Both Thompsons are gone. Alex Love of Hobart, 98 career goals. He's got a good stroke. He's got that underhand. And then Mark Cockerton, Oshawa, Canada, 49 goals for Virginia.
So I guess when you're betting this league, as big as the beast is, you just sit down, grab the mic,
I do as I'm
go
told,
to work.
fellas. Do as I'm told. How you guys doing?
Well,
How
great.
you feeling,
Thanks
first
for
of
joining
all?
us.
Last I saw you at the end of last year, you look like you've been through something tough. And did you refresh for the USA tryouts?
Yeah. I had, like, from my knee, I have a microfracture surgery, so the knee the bones get very bruised very quickly. So there were a lot of games where it just felt like it was shot.
Listening in to the 32nd pick.
Daniel Ipe, midfielder, Harvard.
Well, Greg, as we look at your draft, and we talked to Rob Pennell earlier, what did you think was something you guys maybe not needed to address necessarily just in the draft, but as you look to this season, which I know is a rebound year for you guys?
Close defense. Drew Adams is the best goalie on the planet, and he was getting dunked on all summer, and he didn't deserve it, and we need to do better. So what we lost when Nicky and Brian went to Chesapeake, we tried to gain with some mental toughness, some physical toughness, and some energy down there at the close defense position. And I think we got that, and we were pretty pumped about it. So, obviously we have a stockpile of long stick minis. So I told Joe, as nicely as possible, if you select any midfielders in this draft, then I'm going to flip a table when I get to the draft tonight. And I'm glad that threat worked. So I'm really pumped about who we got. We also got Buck in the supplemental draft. So with Hartzell with the trade, I mean, our close defense is very, very short up now, and I think that was our only weakness, and I think we got it taken care of.
Interesting. Ned Crotty and Pennell. Two guys who can handle the ball pretty well.
Yeah, and you got Mock, who's a very good two-handed attackman. So you got, I know a lot of people were scratching heads when we got Crotty, but I think the beauty about it is Crotty can also play midfield, which he does for Team USA a lot. And it looks like, we're going to have all these guys in preseason for once, which is going to be pretty cool, which you never get in the MLL. We only have Dave Earle's the only person who's not going to be with us in training camp, so we're going to get a chance to build some chemistry, which is pretty unique and cool.
Well, that word came up when we spoke with Rob. He said that the chemistry just wasn't there. I mean, Rob came in as a rookie, a few games into the season, was immediately handed the reins for good reason, but it clearly had an effect. When you look at this season, the motivation factor, and I know you're a guy that leads this team, how much are you going to use what happened last year, the disappointment of it, as a driving force to change it in 2014?
Well, I was in this seat last year when we were talking about everything at the draft last year, and we looked like we were sitting pretty.
Yeah.
And, I think you need to take reality into your hand and say, okay, we had a lot of Chiefs but no Indians. And I think, the problem is we had a lot of guys who needed the rock, but you don't always need, you don't need 8 stars down there. You need guys who are going to fill roles. And I think last year, it's motivation. But if motivation, losing, giving up a 10-goal lead in the semifinals isn't going to get you over the hump, motivation isn't enough. We need to hit the books, and we need to be diligent about how we approach the game from a more intelligent standpoint. And I think that's what we're going to do this year.
There's, I think, 3 face-off men that have been selected. Fowler, Levings, the kid out of Stevenson. What can they expect coming into this league? We know that the volume is going to be much more, but beyond that.
It is a whole different world in the MLL.
It's a Wild West.
I mean, how many times have we seen
Wild
face-off
West.
guys come into this league who are highly touted, and then you never see them again? It's hard to crack this league because you are 1 8 for 25 performance away from never being seen again. So, they have to do their due diligence as far as studying it up, because now the college game is so much different with the rule changes that it's going to take a little time for them to adapt. I hope for their sakes that they're on teams with understandable GMs and knowledgeable coaches that don't just pull the plug on them after they have a tough game. It's real hard to come in this league as a face-off guy.
Let's go through this real quick. Just give me like a one-liner on each of these face-off guys that you go against. Ortolani from Rochester. We used to be with Boston.
Tenacious.
Would you fight him in the MMA ring?
Absolutely not.
Mike Poppleton was a rookie last year, I believe. Did pretty well.
Does really well. He's feisty and he's a technician.
Adam Rand, Chesapeake.
Strong as heck.
Really? Legs or upper body?
Everything.
Really?
I mean, he gets low.
Dive bomber, yeah.
He makes me work harder than just about anybody else.
Matt Delente.
Matt Delente is smart, and he knows exactly who he's going against. He can adapt just like a lot of guys can.
Chris Eck.
Chris Eck is, it's him and me, man. I love going against Chris. I think he's the best in the business.
I love his hesitation when he goes down, so he's always the second guy down.
Always.
It drives me nuts.
Always.
The rest. A-Train.
A-Train is an animal. And what people don't realize is, as big as he is, he's also the nicest guy ever off the field. But he's awesome.
The battle you guys staged in the All-Star game, I thought was one of the most sportsman-like things I've ever seen, where you guys wouldn't budge. You guys were going hard, and you took like 35 face-offs.
And we were both both
dying. You could have had a gentleman's agreement to be like, you know what? But you guys went at it. That was something to see.
Because you know what? You can say all the things you want. You can act however you want. But at the end of the day, we're in this league for a reason. That's why we don't go and do the other stuff, because we want to play against the best. So it's great.
Jeff Snyder, Charlotte.
Non-existent. He won't be here this summer. We'll see him in July. He'll show up the last 2 weeks of the season.
And then Brendan Fowler out of Duke. You probably faced off against him in
I think Brendan's got a great future in this league. I think he's got an awesome future in this league. I think it's going to be a little.
Well, you think?
He's got quick hands, but he's going to have to adapt. He's going to have to change his footwork a little bit. He's going to have to change some things, and he's going to have to get better against the pole. And he will. He's too good of an athlete I think he reminds me a lot of myself, where he's a little bit raw when I was coming out of college, but he's an athletic enough where if he gets his head in it, he can absolutely do well in this league.
Why are we seeing more guys with the knee down?
You're seeing Long Island guys come out because there's somebody out there who teaches one knee down only, and to cheat a lot. And so you're seeing a lot of one knee down guys. The problem is when you're on a knee, you got to get off the knee.
Yeah.
Now, when you're in college, you're going to see more guys get away from it because they have to be completely off the plastic and they have to be further from the ball. In the pro game, you can still choke up. So you're seeing guys go on a knee. Like for me,
I'm up the plastic in the pro game.
Yeah. I'm taller for a face-off guy. That's why I go down on a knee. You'll see me go back and forth. You've seen me. I stand up a lot too, depending on my competition.
So that lowers your hips. That gets you
lower
down
center
lower.
of gravity. I'm not a prototypical size face-off guy. That's why.
Greg, thanks so much. It's
always a pleasure,
fun to
fellas.
catch up. Good
Always.
luck
Love
this
the
year.
knowledge.
Always
Love
a
the knowledge.
pleasure.
Look good, man.
All right, guys.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll catch up on some picks. We'll also be joined by a special guest who's really trying to do something special this summer with those New York Lizards. You're watching the MLL Collegiate Draft on the Major League Lacrosse YouTube channel. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
The Baltimore Bayhawks are the 2002 Major League Lacrosse champions. The Baltimore Bayhawks, champions of Major League Lacrosse. Smith on his way, he scores! The Chesapeake Bayhawks have returned to the winner's circle.
Westerville free and scores! Westerville tied and wins again for Chesapeake. Dixon free rebound scores. Kyle Dixon skies for the rebound and dumps it home beyond the reach of Burke.
The champions are from Chesapeake. You can believe in the Bayhawk dynasty.
Young scores! Ryan Young! Can't blink in this one.
So you got that goalie, I see. The girl I worked with last year.
Welcome back to the MLL Collegiate Draft. We're coming to you live from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, home of not only the U.S. Lacrosse Convention, but kicking off the 14th MLL season. I'm Evan Washburn, joined by Quint Kesnick, and we are going to take you through what has happened so far. The first 4 rounds of the draft. The Ohio Machine kicked it off, selecting Tom Schreiber out of Princeton. Jordan Wolf, a attackman from Duke, picked up by the Rochester Rattlers. Joe Fletcher, a rangy defenseman from Loyola, headed to New York. They had 2 picks, 3 and 4, stayed on the defensive end. And Quint, that's really been the story. A lot of defensemen taken through 4 rounds.
Yeah, defense has been the theme. Round 2, Pat Laconi, a short stick out of Loyola. Joe Muir, defender, close defender out of Ohio State. Mike Chanenchuk, midfielder from Maryland, he can shoot it. A little bit of run on midfielders in this round with Ryan Creighton, defensive midfielder out of Carolina. Rob Guida, who was injured last year. First face-off man was Brendan Fowler out of Duke, and then Tom DiNapoli can play attack or midfield from Towson.
Levings to the Bayhawks, a place where they felt they needed to gain some depth as they try and continue what has been an epic run for that franchise. And as we've head into the 4th round, Quint,
Justin Ward was on sale in that round, by the way. The best deal in that round, ooh, that's a tough one to say. I like John LoCascio for Rochester.
He's a guy who just
tons
piled
of
up,
yeah,
caused
tons of ground balls and caused turnovers.
Rochester has been quiet, but they've done what I think they wanted to do. They had a goal in mind to get the Thompsons in there to pick up the scoring. Remember, they lose Ned Crotty. Attack and production offensively has been a goal for Tim Sudan. I think he's accomplished that. And Dunster's a midfielder from Bryant who a lot of coaches liked in this draft. And joining us now is a player who has gained a lot of attention recently. Devin Wills, one of the best goaltenders in the women's game. And now you're going to test your game on the highest level. You're a member of the New York Lizards, training camp coming up. Take us through the decision to give this a shot.
Well, I think for me, the biggest thing is it's an opportunity to play. And I've always wanted to be the best at what I do. And this is just another opportunity to kind of push those skills and try to expand my game. And, you know, playing against these guys, I mean, they're professional athletes. They're the best at what they do. And that's only going to help me be better all around and translate that into the cage.
What's the biggest challenge that you find yourself facing now in the preparation?
I think the just change in speed overall is going to be the biggest factor. I think men are just naturally faster and stronger, and I think there's going to be an adjustment period where, you know, footwork-wise, release point-wise, tracking, I think there's going to be a lot of things. I think, you know, nothing about this is going to be easy, and I'm, you know, really excited for the challenge, and, you know, huge thanks to Coach Spalina and the Lizards for giving me a legitimate opportunity.
I notice when women's sticks shoot on me, the release is, you know, obviously with the lesser pocket, it's a different release. It's on top of you faster compared to the men's stick with bags or hooks that the ball looks like it's coming here, but then it gets yanked. What have you noticed about the difference in pockets and maybe how that impacts your reactions?
I think the biggest thing is, you know, you're starting to lean one direction and then all of a sudden it pulls exactly what you said, or hooks a different direction. So I think you have to really play it a little bit more honestly from the men. And, you know, men can do so many different things with their sticks that I think patience is a huge test. And I think that's something that is actually one of my stronger points. And, you know, I think with the women's game, it is a lot of quick reaction, whereas with the men, you know, I think you can really, if you track it the right way, be right on top of it.
What type of reaction have you gotten from other women's players?
So far, it's been a ton of support. You know, I think there's obviously going to be some people out there who think it's a bad idea, and, you know, I think everybody's entitled to their opinions. And like I said, for me, this hasn't been a gender issue, and it's not something where I'm trying to mix the sports. You know, this is something where we all set out to be the best in what we do, and this is an opportunity to try to test that. And it's just a personal goal rather than a giant, you know, broad spectrum.
What have you been doing training-wise? I mean, obviously, I'm guessing you're taking more shots from men. I guess take us behind the scenes, what you're doing to get yourself ready for training camp.
Right now, I do have an event with the women at the end of January in Champions Challenge, so that's kind of my main goal right now, main focus. So once that finishes up, I've got some guys that I'll be doing like small drills with, maybe even some leagues with them, so that I can get used to the pace of the game and kind of gradually adjust as we go. So I've got some things lined up, but I have to take care of the U.S. stuff first.
I'm going to be in California next week in Long Beach for an event for a week. Yeah. What's going on at USC?
You know, the girls come back on Monday, and we're hitting preseason, and you know, every day trying to get better. And we're off. Our first game is February 28th at home, so I think we're going to be really good this year. I have a ton of faith in our girls, but you know, we got a lot of hard work to do before that.
Well, Devin, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Good luck.
Absolutely.
Congratulations
Thank you very
on
much. Thanks
luck,
for having
everything
me.
you've accomplished so far. It'll be definitely interesting to watch, and we can't wait to see how it goes.
Yeah, great.
Thanks so much. All right, well, it's time to play catch up once again. These are some of the picks we had while we were talking with Devin Wills. Jack Riley headed to the Cannons. Defenseman out of Johns Hopkins. New York Lizards pick up Brandon Mangan. Quint, that's a guy you liked coming out of Yale. The Bayhawks pick up Pat Kiernan, long stick midfielder from Navy. That was a name that Dave Cottle brought up to me as a guy he was hoping would be around late because he offers some athleticism. He's local.
Yeah, Alex Love is I believe he's an upstate kid who's got a hockey background, who can rip it. Got a beautiful underhand release. Jamie Faust, Denver Outlaws, obviously a local kid. And then Derek Maltz, 30 or so goals last year for the Orange. Going to be a very good Syracuse team this year. They won 16 games last year, and I think they'll be a little better this year even.
Well, they just keep coming in. We have an open seat here, and the high-priced talent has just arrived. And I've got to start here. O'Brien Splina. We just talked about your rings. You got to bring the hands up here. Nothing.
They're at home in the sock drawer.
No jewelry?
At home in the sock drawer, keeping them nice and warm there.
Just if you could describe what it means that when you do look in that sock drawer and have as many championship rings as you have.
Well, it's been a great run. I mean, it's not about Brian Splina in that case. I mean, those are team awards, and I've been very fortunate to be a part of some great teams, especially these past 2 years with the Bayhawks and in the Bayhawk organization with great coaching and great staff behind the team. It's just been an incredible run. So, you know, it's a reflection of really the team. It's a team award. You know, that's not an individual award, and being a part of some 6 great teams has really been a nice award for myself as a player.
What happened last year during the year where you guys kind of spinning your wheels, inconsistent? You know, you see flashes, but then couldn't put it together. But then later, you know, towards end of July, it seemed like the team kind of turned the corner.
I think, you know what, with the league, I think it's proven that, you know, that just the cohesiveness of the group really pays off in the end. I mean, we have just an incredible group of guys, and I think we knew behind the closed doors that we had the talent and we had, you know, what was needed to win a championship, and I think we just needed to find a way to put that together. It's tough to pull off 2 in a row in such a talented league, and, you know, and I guess, you know, this year, that's the end goal. I mean, is to be able to win another championship always, you know, when you step into the season. But you don't want that to be the focus, and you do have a little bit of an added pressure, you know, when you've won the year prior to that. And, you know, I think we just needed to find our niche as a group. We like I said, we knew behind closed doors that we had the talent. We just needed to find our way.
When practice starts for this version, you know, there'll always be new faces. A veteran like Brendan Mundorf or a rookie like Alex Love, or you got 2 new Poles, Matt Harris and Pat Kiernan out of Navy. How do you tell them what the expectations are? How do you put that in as a leader of this team? How do you kind of establish that?
Yeah, that's one thing I've learned through playing so many years. I mean, really what pays off is that you do have that, you know, that group effort and that everybody's kind of set towards the same goal. I mean, it's just going to be an honor to step on the field with guys like Mundorf and Walters and even Poulian. I mean, we've battled so many years against these guys, and to have the opportunity to suit up with them and kind of step out of the locker room with those guys is going to be something special, especially for myself as a veteran. You know, and I think we need to find that glue. You know, in the league, especially myself, you know, I've been a part of successful teams, but it seems like every successful team, just nobody cares who gets the credit. You go out there, you do your job for 60 minutes, and the end result, you know, usually pays off for you if you buy into that system. And with Coach Cottle and Brendan Kelly behind the team, I mean, they really kind of set those goals, and we kind of just, you know, follow in line with that, and it's obviously paid off for us. So
I asked Mike Evans the same question. When you've accomplished as much as you guys have as a team, and there are new pieces, so there's every year sort of stands on its own, but what do you think this year's goal is? I know the championship is out there and you want to keep winning those, but what do you think the message will be going into training camp in this season?
Hey, you know what, guys? I mean, I'm 35 years old.
That's it?
I've been in this league for since its inception. You know what? It just doesn't get old. You know, so like you said, the end goal is the championship. And I think from day one when you step on the field, I mean, that's the message. I mean, we're here for the last day in August, is to be able to, you know, end the season in a pile up and not in disappointment. And I think that's the message that Coach Cottle sets straight right away is, you know, we're going to be a team, we're going to figure this out. I mean, you know, from my standpoint with this team, I mean, I've seen incredibly talented players sit out just because we had to, because of salary cap issues and things like that, and everyone's kind of bought into the system, and we know the end goal is to be able to, you know, to have the opportunity to win another championship. So any competitor that steps on the field, any competitor that's training in the off season, I mean, that's the one thing you have in mind. I mean, all these individual awards are great for the individual player, but who really cares about that? I mean, the end goal and the first goal stepping on the field for the preseason is that at the end of the season you end with success and not with disappointment. So I don't think that gets old.
How's your professional life going in terms of teaching? What's the latest there?
School's great. I got a great group of kids. I got 19 students this year. I wish I did speak Spanish because I have many Spanish-speaking students this year, but it's always a challenge. You know, it's always a challenge, but you know, working with kids is so rewarding, and just to see them grow throughout the school year from September to June is something special. So it's been so far a great year, halfway through, and you know, looking forward to continuing to see those little guys grow. So it's been great.
Cool. Well, Brian, it's always fun to catch up with you. Thought you came on big at the end of last year, so hopefully you can carry that into 2014.
Yeah, I'm hoping, man. I've been training hard for it, so hopefully.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Ryan Spallina of the Chesapeake Bayhawks, a man with many rings in the sock drawer. We're going to take a quick break. We'll recap what picks we've missed when we come back to the Liberty Ballroom in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Round 6. Keeping up with Major League Lacrosse has never been easier. Get all the latest news, highlights, and scores right to your smartphone with the MLL app for iPhone and Android. Download yours today.
Here's Bachman, a down, Bachman shot, he scores! It's Matt Bachman! Seavert's ground shot, it's a long range two, he scores! It's a deuce from way out! Final moment to the corner. Score! Bachman found it, buried it in the final moments, Chris Bachman!
Ryan Boyle scanning, scores! Philadelphia is the champ in 2007.
Powerful blast, fires and scores! Casey Powell!
First title for the Rattlers from the Flower City.
Time has expired off the clock. This one for all the bees finally goes to Boston.
What are your thoughts on that? Welcome back to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That's a Lowe's Hotel. We're right across the street at the Marriott, specifically the Liberty Ballroom, home of the 2014 MLL Collegiate Draft. We are in the heart of round 6 of 8, 64 total picks. We just had the 44th pick of the Rochester Rattlers, and it's time to recap how we got here. Starting at 33 with the Boston Cannons, Jack Riley, defenseman out of Johns Hopkins. The Boston Cannons have come into this draft with a goal in mind. I think they've had a really strong draft so far. The New York Lizards take Brandon Mangan. We see Pat Kiernan to the Bayhawks, the Navy long stick midfielder. Quint, I bring you in now. The Bayhawks then pick up Alex Love out of Hobart. As we start going through these picks, what's coming to mind?
First couple of rounds were defensive dominated. Now we're starting to see those goal scorers that I mentioned early on. Mangan, big points for Yale, led him to an NCAA quarterfinal. Alex Love can rip it, 98 goals, Hobart career. In that time period, I think Hobart's only won about 15 games. This kid's got a great underhand release. Brandon Ben, Johns Hopkins, 34 goals. I'm surprised we have not seen Mark Cockerton of Virginia drafted yet. There's a couple more guys. Stephen O'Hara, Phil Castronova of Johns Hopkins, who Castronova, I do not believe is going to be draft eligible. Sorry to inform the folks. Castronova had the Achilles and will redshirt. ACL. Does he have an extra year? He's not a senior this year, though. He's got 2 more.
Well, this guy would know. Everybody, if you don't realize, we got Paul Rabel joining us now. He and Quinn are figuring out some eligibility issues.
Well, I talked to one of their assistant coaches, and I asked them who are your seniors, and they felt that Castronova was coming back.
For a year after this year?
Yeah, let me double check that.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, as we talk
age.
about Phil Castronova, what do you think of what the Cannons have done so far?
You know, I think they've done. Do I need to use this?
Yeah.
They've done a great job, obviously. You know, I think Coach Tucker's had a really strong track record in putting together teams and a great judge of talent at the collegiate level. But I think more importantly, the way they could assimilate to the pro game, which has always been difficult. And you know, it's still this league is still relatively new in predicting that type of behavior in college into pro. So, you know, I think we got some really good ones.
And for the Cannons, you guys have always had such consistent, you know, rosters, and that's something tough to do in this league. And it hasn't seemed like rookies have had a great chance to really make an imprint. We saw Will Manny have a nice run there last year. How important is it, though, to start building some depth?
It's very important. You know, I think the difficult thing about pro lacrosse, pro basketball, football, whatever it is your rosters are so limited, and the depth that you can build at the collegiate game is unlimited to the extent of away game travel, you know, and the pro game, I mean, you got 18, 19 guys you can dress, and then plus, you know, 4 or 5 guys you can practice with. So, you know, you envision the team to go a certain way, and then, you know, one guy doesn't pan out, you got to bring another guy in, but that guy may come at a cost to 2 of your guys, and then you got to kind of figure that out. So it's not easy, you know, and it's one of the reasons why I'm going to continue to enjoy being a player and not have to think about what goes on in the front and back office at the moment.
I'm going to ask you about you. Late last season, you were playing through some considerable pain and injury. How are you right now?
I am happy to say that I'm fully back to fitness. It's taken a while. What we thought was just 1 tear in my abdominal was 2, and then also a completely torn left adductor. So I went and saw Dr. Myers in Philadelphia, who's really has a phenomenal track record, and since then have been teaming up my strength conditioning team and working on all functional movement systems. Restructured what I've done in the past, which is a lot of like heavy strength and speed, and doing a lot of like band work, flexibility, core work, and just building my body differently. So I'm really excited about where I went and where I'm going to go.
Seems like we're seeing that injury more and more in lacrosse, very common in hockey and some soccer.
Yeah, you know, it's a relatively new surgery. I mean, it's 20 years new. And Dr. Myers is one of the guys who discovered it. He was a former professional athlete. In the past, they've treated it like a sports hernia, where they give you, you know, this mesh that, you know, is fabricated into your system. But the problem with that is that's your potential. You can't break that mesh down and rebuild it stronger like you can muscle. And he's identified and abolished the medical term sports hernia since then, and called it a core injury. He ties your muscle together, so he doesn't stitch anything. He actually stitches the loose ends of your muscle together and allows you the opportunity to build stronger than you were. So,
and while you finished up last year, you clearly weren't 100%, and then you do have the game sort of taken away from you for a period of time. How much does that drive you now, and how excited are you not only for Team USA, but also this upcoming season?
I think I learned a lot from the U.S. tryout phase. I participated in the first weekend of games in August, and then sat out the following 2 because of surgery. But you get a really unique perspective as a player to watch what other guys do from the sidelines. I worked on, building, building and harnessing my leadership and my ability to communicate to guys, learn how some of my teammates play and other guys that are going to be on the USA roster. But a lot of Cannons guys were trying out, so incredibly hungry to get back, and can't wait till January. And this is going to be my second preseason training camp that I've been a part of in the MLL. So it's unbelievable.
Brody Merrill, he's a Boston Cannon.
Yeah,
it's hard to believe.
Yeah.
What was your reaction when that deal was made?
I mean, it's a guy that I've always kind of pointed to and love to play with. He's been a foe of mine for some time, but I've always respected the way he plays, and more than anything, his tenacity on the field and his desire to win every play. Obviously Canadian, and so I see him on the international stage, and I just couldn't be more excited to play with him.
As you look at not only this draft night for these college seniors, and you look back at what it was like for you, and what do you think is kind of going through their minds as maybe they're watching us on YouTube or following on Twitter, and a guy sees that he gets picked up by a team? How exciting is that for some of these guys?
I think it's great excitement. I think since I've been in the league in 2008, it's grown tremendously from a competitive standpoint. The coaches that are in the game now, the limited roster spots, the competition for the roster spots, the turnovers, the trades in rosters. I mean, it's created a really incredible value to being on a team. And when you're selected, it's a pretty incredible honor to continue to have the opportunity to continue to play the game that you've invested your whole life in.
Well, Paul, it's always good to see you, man. Congrats on the marriage.
Fires me up being back here with you guys. It's been a few months.
Steven Berger's coming up to give out the last pick,
Yeah, he put in that special request.
What do you think about that, Berger being the last guy selected? That's unbelievable, the more I think about it. By New York, and he used to have to schlep up there to practice, and he would do it. They didn't play him for that whole first year.
It's, the small things that we take for granted in sports at any level. And I've talked to coaches in the NFL, to the NBA. You have an example like Steve where he was picked 50th, and the way he's turned out, multiple-time All-Star, incredible player. And still, teams kind of pack in at these later rounds. And I think that's why, bias aside, why Coach Belichick continues to get these guys in the later rounds.
You got to find what's inside.
You just don't. It's and why I said it sounds so simple to us, because we see it here on paper. It's like some guys just they got their guys and that's it. So I'm looking for. I love seeing number 50 each year.
Yeah.
56 this year.
You guys go at 51.
I mean, it's incredible. I think we were talking about Phil Castronova.
We'll talk about Castronova because I talked to the Johns Hopkins staff today, and they said that he plans to come back for another year. So that team's going to have to sit on that pick for a year.
Well, we'll see about that. This is second.
Come on, man.
How many medical red shirts can you take? I don't know.
He entered school in 2010.
I talked to the guy.
2, 3. This is his 4th year. He would be a senior. He didn't play as a sophomore.
The guy was with Chris Bolin.
He didn't play as a sophomore.
I think the guy was a freshman when I was a senior.
No. This came from Coach William Dwan.
Stay tuned.
Thanks, Paul. You guys figured this out. As you can see, we're getting toward the ends of this thing. But coming up next, we'll have John Gelati of Inside Lacrosse join us to help break down what we've seen so far in this draft and what it means for these teams going forward. Stay with us. We're coming to you live from the Liberty Ballroom in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Quint's still working on Phil Castronova's eligibility.
Phil, tweet us right now. Are you going to redshirt?
In transition. Plays back. Montel into the 6-foot pole. A blast. He scores. All the way down. Manley dives and scores. McIntosh splits defenders and fires it in. He scores. The rookie John Rannigan out of Johns Hopkins.
Keeping up with Major League Lacrosse has never been easier. Get all the latest news, highlights, and scores right to your smartphone with the MLL app for iPhone and Android. Download yours today.
Rebound! Young scores! Ryan Young! Can't blink in this one.
Welcome back. We're coming to you live from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, site of the 2014 MLL Collegiate Draft, and we're getting towards the end of this thing, and that means we bring in the big guns. John Gelati of Inside Lacrosse joins us now to not necessarily break down this thing pick by pick, but as you prepared the magazine for tonight, what were some of the themes that came up with you guys?
I mean, I understand you're bringing me in for garbage time. You can call it what it is. You know,
Hey,
it's
we just
mop
had
up
Bo
duty.
Rabel,
It's
one of
mop
the
up duty.
faces
All
of the
right.
sport, so
all right. Fair
you're
enough.
following,
We'll take that. I'll be the mop up guy. It's fine. You know, I think the key thing, seeing what the launch do, I think is a big question mark. New team. What are they going to do with that franchise? What does Ohio do to kind of elevate themselves? Everybody's kind of talked about how good Chesapeake has gotten in the offseason. So what are other teams going to do to kind of combat that? I mean, they've done such a good job of bringing in talented players. If it's as weak a draft as some people say it is, what can people do to kind of work around that? So I think it's interesting how things have gone. I think it's gone well for some of these teams. If New York can kind of turn the corner a little bit, but it's been good. It's been interesting.
The one guy I will ask you about, pick number 1, Ohio gets Tommy Shriver, a big name from Princeton. It was expected that he would go. As you've covered him over your time at the magazine while he's been at Princeton, what are some of the things that you sort of focus on?
Yeah, I mean, he was even no-brainer, number 1. I think big, strong, powerful midfielder who can shoot, who can feed, who can kind of do it all from up top. That's a pretty hot commodity in the MLL. I mean, that's a prototypical MLL midfielder coming from Princeton. Good program, good kid, great kid. I've hung out with him a bunch of times and talked to him and interviewed him. Really smart, good perspective, talented player. It's a no-brainer for them. I think he'll add a nice dynamic to that offense. That they have so much young talent. They're going to figure out. They're going to put it together. They're going to be a good program, a good franchise pretty soon here. Talk to me, buddy. What do you got?
This is diet. People have been accusing me of drinking all this soda all night.
You're looking a little thick.
No. I cannot believe, has Mark Cockerton not gotten drafted? The guy
I don't want to
scored
commit to that because we have been
goals.
doing a lot of interviews, but I haven't heard his
I got
name.
him for 49 goals in the ACC. You know, the same coaches who draft guys out of the ACC won't draft him, who scored 49 goals out of the conference last year. That's shocking to me.
That is shocking. He was so effective last year. He kind of took another step last year, it seemed like to me.
30% shooter, 49 goals, 7 assists for a team that wasn't very good, and at times he was their only offense.
Yeah, he took over that team.
Running through guys to get to the goal, taking arms crushed.
Some of the goals he scored were some of the better goals I saw all year last year.
Yeah. Now you guys are both dialed into the sport and coaches. And is there anything that you can think of, whether it be commitment to a job or maybe something he's from Canada, maybe he'd be playing somewhere that some of these GMs and coaches may know?
Good point.
If Hamilton was in Hamilton this year, maybe he's picked already. I mean, maybe that's a no-brainer for them if that franchise is around this year. But
excellent point. You're all over it.
I gotta think he'll wind up somewhere. Good genes.
So
good genes
who
from
gets
Stan
to go down
Cochran.
to Florida from Inside Lacrosse and cover this team on a weekly basis?
That might be a tough one to delegate. I might have to pick up that assignment.
April especially, like
April.
preseason camp.
June, July,
First 3
August.
games at home.
Yeah. I might take the first half, punt on the second half.
Spallina on a recent cover, did I see?
Yes, December. We did the great photo shoot with him. Good article, I thought, because I wrote it. But it was good. It was interesting kind of studying that because so many people don't like the way he plays. Well, when you talk to anybody he plays with, and a lot of guys that he played against, respecting him, they respect how he plays. They understand the method to the madness and why he plays the way he is. He's a competitor, and he wants to win, and he's been effective with that. 6 rings speak for themselves, I think. And a lot of even opposing players, Joe Walters was the most impactful to me. He was like, yeah, he slashed me, he broke my thumb, he did this, but I respect the way he plays. Because if he was on my team, that's how I would want him to play.
You went down to Charlotte, was it last year in their war room?
The first war room.
Or
the first
2 years
year,
ago?
2 years ago, yeah, first time. And I was blown away then.
They've done a nice job.
I was very impressed with what they've done, the philosophy they had, the team that they had, and it's been borne out. They've done a good job.
Yeah, Jim and Philome's done a really nice job.
Jim has done a phenomenal job.
I think they've had I rate them the number 2 draft tonight so far, behind Boston.
11 picks, and I think they've done what
really
they
well.
needed to do.
Done
And,
really
and
well.
they've come in each year with a goal in mind to draft. It sounds like coach speak, but you see it translated on the field. They draft guys that want to go play in Charlotte, be a part of the community, go down there, as they say it, be hounds, and it comes across in the field.
And they reinvented their team last year from their first year. I mean, that's pretty crazy to have built a team and then reinvent it and make the playoffs. So they've done a nice job as we got video bombed there. Thank you, Paul. Yeah. That's an upstate New York mullet if I've ever seen one.
A lot of the analytics of tonight has been about the college game, because a lot of these, obviously, college seniors. What can we expect from the magazine and storylines of this college season?
I think we got a good cover coming out. A couple guys that got picked tonight will be on that cover for our February issue. We're pretty excited about that. Miles, Ty, and Lyle Thompson will be on our next cover. Cool. Coming out pretty soon. Well deserved. We kind of really wanted to analyze their games. We talked about the family connections and the native backgrounds, which are all very special, but they're amazing players, and not a lot of people have seen them play. They've been on 3 ESPNU games in their career, so not a lot of people have actually seen why they're so good. So we wanted to kind of explain that, and it's a cool article to read and put through. We just transmitted this week, so it'll be out next week. I'm excited about that. But, I think moving forward, the ACC is going to be a beast this year. It's going to be interesting to watch that come together, especially with Maryland for 1 year. That's going to be a power conference. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Talking to Terry Foy about that today. Some teams are going to get losses. There's Mark Hockerton. Mark Hockerton just got selected. Congratulations to Mark if you're watching. Someone obviously at one of the GM tables is watching our show on YouTube.
What's going on Twitter?
Well done.
What's going on Twitter? I don't know. I'm picking up a lot of followers tonight, I'll tell you that much.
There you go. You don't need any more followers. You're pretty good on that, I think.
Who will be champs based on the trades and the picks? I don't know that.
Can you count? Who's the challenger at Chesapeake? Because it's got to be Chesapeake.
I honestly think Charlotte.
Yeah?
I mean, if you match up the rosters, the experience, and the guys like Mundorf and Walters, I think make that tough. But to me, I have the comparison of Miami Heat, if you're the Bayhawks, Indiana Pacers, Charlotte Hounds. Young team that's hungry,
good speed,
angry,
can make it through the summer because they're fit.
They play well against
I worry
Chesapeake.
I worry about their offensive midfielders. I think their transition game will be terrific.
How important is chemistry versus talent in this league?
Well, we saw last year that chemistry was more important with Denver all season long, but
talent wins out at Jam Weekend.
Yeah, well, they had that extra week to think about it,
But this year, remember, this changes. We'll have the semifinals hosted by the top 2 seeds, and then championship game.
Is there a week off at the end of the regular season?
It's a good question. I don't have the answer for you.
Because there's a week there that I don't know
think
where
there
it
is.
went.
I don't think there is this year. You go right into it, which kind of changes things a little bit.
Because the season gets pushed back a week because of the World Games, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I don't think
it's
there's
1
that
week
week
later.
off.
So there's
All right,
no
John,
week of hype.
well, I'm getting told
My
we've
pleasure.
got
My
Steven
pleasure.
Berger coming in
Oh, wow.
to really
Wow, that's really mop-up time.
Yeah, you
That's
gotta get a photo
brutal.
with this for the magazine. Seriously, he's doing the last pick, the Mr. Irrelevant.
Oh, all right, Mr. Irrelevant. Oh, that's
Bring
awesome.
in Mr.
That's
Irrelevant.
awesome. I will take
Get him
that
up there.
photo.
We gotta
Well,
get a
yeah,
picture.
get in there.
We gotta get a picture.
I think you've done pretty well with it.
What should we call it? What should we call it?
I think Mr. Irrelevant is good for me, man.
That's what Beninati always calls it.
Exactly.
Steven Berger,
Yeah,
thanks for
what's going
joining
on,
us.
Evan?
Good
we're
to
on?
see you. Happy New Year.
I thought we went away.
No, we're here. We're just staying.
Here.
No
We're
breaks.
We are live.
We're on overtime right
so-
now.
yeah.
We're way on overtime. I
Take
thought we'd
us
be done
back,
at 10:30.
because we are talking. You're going to make the last pick.
Sure.
You're going to
Yeah,
announce
where
it.
were you?
Where were you?
Bring that
What
mic
was
up.
going on?
Bring your mic up.
Yeah.
All right. So, first of all, I was in a seat sitting next to Kevin Boland from Johns Hopkins,
Yeah.
one of my childhood friends who taught me the game of lacrosse. Sitting there, don't think I'm going to get drafted. Let's be realistic. I'm D3. I go to Washington College. I'm among the best of the best. And just to have the opportunity to play with the guys that I was playing with was, for me, an accomplishment. And to hear my name, Vinny Sobrato at the point was the head coach. So to hear my name and go up there and represent Maryland, Division III lacrosse, Mount St. Joe, Baltimore, Howard County, it was cool. So I think at the end of the day, what you do is you realize now is your chance, right? Now is whatever you've done before doesn't matter. It's now at the footstone to prove yourself and do what you have done all along in college, and what you represented yourself, represent it now.
But we go from that to obviously all the success you've had now. But that first year, from what I've heard, was a pretty big grind. I mean, you drove just for practices from up to Long Island. And
Sure. We're weekend warriors, you know. I mean,
but you weren't even seeing time in the games that first year.
No. First year I didn't play 1 minute. I basically got beat up by Pat McCabe, John Gagliardi, and Nick Polanco. So for many weeks, I was a practice guy, you know, and learning from them to know for the next year when I have that opportunity, because I got protected. The guy who didn't play at all and finally got protected, and like, what does that mean? And so I learned from them. I learned from them the best.
I need to check.
I need to eat. Quinn is right. Yeah. And I also, you take advantage of the knowledge. I think that's what a lot of these guys do in this league is they're humble enough to say, yes, I'm good enough to play in this league, but I still need to learn how to advance my skill, my efforts, and my passion.
That was a good group that you broke in with. I mean, that was a tight team, a solid veteran team. Like, there weren't many free spots.
I was on the first midfield with Jay Jalbert and AJ Hogan.
Yeah.
So it was like, Steven Berger. And they were like, what? And then Jay Jalbert, like, crowd erupts. And then AJ Hogan, crowd erupts, you know, and then Steven Berger, and they're like, who? You know, but that, what you said is I learned from those guys, you know, they're the best of the best. And actually the defensemen I probably learned more from, because they just gave more skill to what an offensive player could try to do and what they're trying to take away, you know, and you go to your enemy. That's what you do. You don't go to your ally who's the guy you're trying to compete against. You go to the guys that are trying to stop you and say, what are you trying to do? Well, why do you want to stop me, and how can I make myself better? So.
Back then, the draft was after the college season.
After,
it was,
yeah.
It was early June usually, like right after the season ended. Now it's before the year. Well, that's got to be tricky for these kids, you know? You walk in the locker room next week and you're a first-round draft pick, or you walk in the locker room and you're 63rd pick. Like, so you're either too proud, or you're humbled, or I'm not sure. Like, how should a kid view where he is?
I think it probably you could also probably look at the recruiting stage now with kids in high school as well, right?
Yeah.
You know,
you're early verbal, or you're not.
They're early verbal. What do they do? How do I represent myself? Do I have to prepare anymore? At the end of the day, guys, you got to prepare no matter what situation in, whether you're the first guy on the roster or whether you're the last guy on the roster.
Yeah, that doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter anymore. You know, one of my best friends, Paul Rabel. I'm going to compete myself every day against that guy. He's the best in the world. He looks himself as the best in the world, but he still puts himself up against us. And that's what you have to do in the sport in general, whether you want to compete at the highest level or whether you just want to be a guy on the roster. You're still going to put yourself at that edge and make yourself improve.
We got some fans out there in YouTube land. It's getting late, I know, but tomorrow this lacrosse convention's open all day, correct?
All day. We open tonight at 5, but lacrosse convention is going to be wild tomorrow.
So
the Fan Fest.
We're on Market Street in downtown Philadelphia. There's plenty of parking right behind the building.
Plenty.
You can walk across, come into the convention. What do they get to see?
I think the biggest thing that you can see is the amount of lacrosse personalities around. You know, you can walk anywhere in the vendor village and see anyone and everyone. I think the other thing is you can go to any classroom session and learn whatever you want. Whether it's X's and O's in offense or whether you want to be an official at the best level or the highest level, you can learn. The educational resources that we provide is the most important. And lastly, networking. Our sport doesn't grow without networking. So you're going to be able to meet people, learn things from other organizations that you wouldn't necessarily know, and take advantage of all the secrets that Quinn Kessenich tries to give everyone that is really not a secret.
I need to study my recovery patterns, like the way these college teams now. I know sliding.
How do we do it?
I know sliding's easy. It's the recoveries that are complicated nowadays.
There's no secrets in lacrosse, and I think that's one thing that we try to portray is that.
Do I recover to the crease? Do I recover adjacent?
Depends on the slide package.
How do I recover?
Depends on the slide package. Are they playing zone? Are they U9? Are they?
The recovery packages are where I'm struggling now. It's gotten kind of modern for me, so I need to go back to school.
Yep.
Stick around tomorrow. You were going to drive home tonight, but you're going.
He's here all weekend. He's here all weekend.
Tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. We're up all night to get lucky here.
Well, Steve, we got to release you because you got some work to do.
Thanks, guys.
The 64th pick. No longer Mr. Irrelevant.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. All right, Quint.
Charlotte Hounds are on the clock.
We are now at 63.
We got to see some picks. What do we miss?
Yeah. We got to recap. The graphics department's working overtime here to get us ready. Just getting a note here. Duncan Clancy taken with the 61st pick.
It's good. He'll be an everyday name in a couple years. Just getting a note. We just got photobombed by Rabel, but he tweeted about it, so maybe we'll get some of his followers.
How many followers you gained here this evening?
5 or 6.
That's it?
When the news gets out that I said Maryland wouldn't make the playoffs, this thing will blow up tomorrow.
Here we go. Here's our last 5 picks. The How Machine selects Spencer.
Need a team. JoJo the War Drummer wants a team in Texas.
Oh,
Dallas,
really?
then Houston.
Actually, Tommy Lacrosse is a name that jumps out there. You talked about him early.
Just for his name alone, I'd hire him for the marketing potential. Wow. Who's still on the board? We may have missed some picks, but let me go through my list right here. Mike Crampton, Air Force. Sean Wright, Providence. 41 goals, 6'7". Kevin O'Neill, Boys Latin graduate, lefty. Nice little shot. Torrin Varn, no money from Hofstra. Shane Sturgis, Penn State, quarterback of their offense. Did Ben McIntosh of Drexel? Am I missing something? He's a Canadian, though. Again,
I think, and that's one thing that came up when we spoke with GMs
Zach
and coaches.
Lasko of Penn's not a Canadian, and I haven't heard his name. Maybe I missed it.
We will try and do a
Zach
recap
Lasko's a
and
good
take
player.
you through all the draft picks that went through while we were doing our interviews. Obviously, we took this draft in a
North
different
Carolina.
direction. But there was talent late that may have
Derek Raby,
been missed.
Princeton, 73 ground balls. That's more than any other defender in the country had last year. Second team All Ivy.
Let's set it up because Steven Berger's making his way to the podium right now. We just had him here.
Bobby Lawrence.
Mr. Irrelevant, he will announce the 64th pick by the Chesapeake Bayhawks.
Chris
the
Hicks,
last pick
Max Meyer.
in the
Where are you?
2014 MLL draft.
Chesapeake Bayhawks. In the 2014 MLL.
Ladies and gentlemen, here to present the final pick of the 2014 draft is Mr. Irrelevant from a decade ago, Steven Berger. Steven was the last pick in the 04 draft and went on to become a multi-time All-Star and the MVP of the 2012 MLL All-Star Game. Ladies and gentlemen, Steven Berger.
Hopefully I don't mess this up. The 2014 MLL Collegiate Draft Selection by the Chesapeake Bayhawks is Brian Cooper, midfielder, University of Maryland. Yeah! I think I got up and didn't say anything at that point.
No.
No.
Thank you everyone for coming tonight. That concludes the 2014 Major Lacrosse Collegiate Draft. We'll see everybody in Baltimore next January. Take care.
Well, Brian Cooper, you have some big shoes
That was
to
awesome.
fill.
Yeah.
Stephen Berger took Mr. Irrelevant to an all-star level. It is now your turn. We're going to go to break and come back with some final thoughts, wrap up the draft, show you some of the picks we may have missed while interviewing our litany of stars this evening. Stick with us for final thoughts from Quint and myself on the 2014 MLL Collegiate Draft. Take a few more.
Charlotte and Boston in a thriller. Quick passing. Score! How do you do, Stephen Berger? Welcome to town. Not be denied. Rabel shot the goal. Rabel is pushed. A knife through two. Boyle. The goal. The Cannons have won it. Can't blink in this one. Stanwick behind the back, highlight reel goal. Marcus Holman, crisscrossing, Stanwick, Conley, feet in front, but he scores! Low shot into the corner, and another goal for Logan Schutz.
The Baltimore Bayhawks are the 2002 Major League Lacrosse champions. The Baltimore Bayhawks, champions of Major League Lacrosse. Smith on his way, he scores! The Chesapeake Bayhawks have returned to the winner's circle. Westfield free and scores! Dixon free rebound scores! Kyle Dixon skies for the rebound and dunks it home beyond the reach of Burke. The champions are from Chesapeake. You can believe in the Bayhawk dynasty.
Rebound! Young scores! Ryan Young! You can't blink in this one.
Convention Center hosts the U.S. Lacrosse Convention all weekend long, and tonight it kicked off the 2014 MLL season with the collegiate draft. 64 college players selected into the MLL. I'm Evan Washburn, joined by Quint Kesnick. And Quint, it's always a marathon of a night, but it starts with the first round, obviously, 8 picks. And these are players that, for the most part, we do see make an impact in their first season in Major League Lacrosse. Let's go through the first 8 picks and what jumps out to you.
Tonight was an ultra marathon in terms of that. Well, when you look at the first round, I think Tommy Schreiber going number 1 was not a surprise to anybody. Princeton's midfielder, the righty-lefty skill set to split dodge and be able to score on the run, but then the passing that he can bring to the table. I think that's what separates him in recent memory. You know, so many of these power dodging middies we've seen recently are shooters on the run. He can do a lot more than that, and I think that's what his appeal was. He makes his teammates better. I think Princeton has a really good team this year, and Schreiber will be one of the Tuarton favorites, obviously. One of the other themes of that first round, and really this entire draft, for the amount of defensemen selected. New York took 2 at 3 and 4. All right, let's go with teams you like. There's obviously the winners and losers thing. I think that's a little presumptuous as we sit here in January, not knowing exactly what's going to happen in the college season and then obviously throughout the MLL season. But 4 teams that you think had a good night based off of what we see on paper. I think Boston did a nice job strengthening their defense with Scott McWilliams and Jack Riley. They got a backup goalie potential, maybe a starter in Austin Kaut. And then Rob Emery. You know, if they can put him in a position where Rabel dodges and throws back to Emery with his feet planted, he's going to be a big-time 2-point threat. Massive velocity. We'll see if Phil Castronova actually is draft eligible. That'll play itself out. He has not applied yet formally for that medical red shirt, but he did miss the 2012 season. So I like the top part of that draft, specifically the 2 defenders, Riley and McWilliams, to help a Boston team that really struggled in defense last season. Ohio Machine, another team that obviously needed to have a very good draft, 2 and 12 a season ago. We talked about Tommy Schreiber, number 1. Why else did you feel like they had a good night? I like the midfielders, the 3 they got. You think about Schreiber, we talked about his skills. Rob Guida of Johns Hopkins is a player that I have an extreme, I'm impressed with his game. The kid brings a smile to work every day. He loves the game of lacrosse. He plays with passion. He was hurt last year. I think if he was healthy, he would be in the top 8 pick. He can get to the goal. He can shoot the mid-range shot. He's good on man up, and he can play some defense. That's a nice fix. You like Jackson Place off the ground. Scott Loy had a big year last year. He'll be Syracuse's number 1 midi this year. And regardless of whether his production goes up or down, he's going to be covered by number 1 polls in the ACC, and that'll bode him well going forward. You got great value with Derek Maltz. You get tremendous value with R.G. Keenan, who had a subpar season last year at 53% facing off with the new rules. We'll see if he can get in better shape and adjust his strategy. Charlotte Hounds had 11 picks tonight, and despite making the championship game a year ago, they came into this draft hungry to improve and get better. Remember, they were 7 and 7 in the regular season. Why is Charlotte? They always take the big name schools. You know, something that kind of just, when we're sitting down with Brett Schmidt and you realize how many different guys they have from the University of Maryland, and they continued that pattern here. Michael Earhart, 6'4", 210 pounds. They hope to be a number 1 stopper. Pat Laconi, defensive midfield. They got riches there with Josh Hawkins, Drew, Casey Cittadino, and the veteran Schiller. Chanenchuk, righty midi who can shoot on the runs, got a great release. He's been covered by a pole. Now when he plays for the Hounds, he'll draw a shorty. Fowler, the best face-off man in the draft. DiNapoli, highly underrated from Towson, great athlete. Dion, the Duke inside finisher. Justin Ward, you talk about on sale. There's the value of the whole draft. Kid has zillions of assists in the last 2 years, and he goes, 23 overall. You got Lob from Duke. There's my boy Zach Lasko of Penn. Chris Hips, another athlete, and the lefty Kevin O'Neill, the midi/attackman from Villanova. Actually coached Kevin in high school. He can rip it from the outside. That's a lot of players. Well, lastly, Quint. They did great. Charlotte did great. The Florida launch. Obviously, it's the Hamilton Nationals roster moving down to Florida, but it's an expansion team. Stan Ross and Jim Stagnita came in tonight knowing that they needed to build some depth, obviously, but also bring in some players that hopefully can play, because there's a lot of question about this roster with all those indoor players. Why is Florida, in your mind, a team that was successful this evening? 2 players stand out here. Kieran McCardle, St. John's attackman, the quarterback of that Red Storm offense. Jason Miller loves to do the 2-man games. He's good at that. He can turn the corner. He can feed. He's really bared so much of the offensive weight at St. John's and done extremely well for himself. And then I think you look at number 12 with Ryan Creighton, workhorse, warhorse type midi for Joe Bresci in North Carolina. He's a defensive midfielder with some offensive punch. Remember, 2 years ago he actually ran an offensive shift. He's the perfect prototype, a guy in the ACC who plays that role. He should have a smooth transition at the pro level. I think Joe Mura is kind of just a steady Eddie type of guy you're going to plug in and you're never going to have any problems with. You know, he might not be the most flashy guy. He was as a high school guy when he played long stick, but I think he's more of a steady Eddie type down below. Pick up a backup goalie, and for the time being, in Nico Amato. So that's a nice start for Stan Ross and the Florida launch.
Well, it's always an interesting night. 3+ hours of picks. No trades this year during the draft, which is always something that we can count on. But this year, teams stood pat, and obviously we shifted things later in the draft. A lot of great interviews. It should be an exciting season. Quint, it's always a pleasure to work with you, my man.
Yeah, just looking forward. Big storylines. Early start in April. All-Star game should be special this year. Team USA, we're going to shut it down for a week when all these MLL athletes will go out to Denver. And then the championship game in Atlanta should be excellent. Kennesaw State.
Quint mentioned it. April 26th, right around the corner, week 1 of the Major League Lacrosse season. You can see a full slate of games right here on the Major League Lacrosse YouTube channel. Thanks for sticking with us all night. Have a great rest of the winter. We'll see you on April 26th.